It began with a symbol cut from stone and memory, a keystone worn on the shoulder, carrying the weight of a state, a tradition, and a kind of stubborn endurance that would be tested again and again. The 28th Infantry Division was built from citizen soldiers, men who came from mill towns, coal country, farms, and city streets. Many of them had trained together long before the war, drilling on weekends, balancing military obligation with ordinary lives. They were not formed for spectacle. They were formed for duty. And when the war demanded everything, the Keystone Division carried its weight straight into some of the most punishing ground of the Second World War. Their journey into combat did not come with ease. When the division entered France, it moved into a war already raging, hedgerows that swallowed sound and sight, villages reduced to rubble, fields laced with mines and hidden fire. Progress was slow, exhausting, and costly. Every step forward demanded coordination, patience, and martyrdom, allowance and sacrifice. The men of the 28th learned quickly that modern war was not about sweeping advances, but about holding ground under constant pressure. Then came the forest. The Hürtgen Forest would carve itself permanently into the division's history. Dense trees blocked artillery observation. Rain turned trails into mud. Cold settled into everything. Explosions splintered trunks into lethal shards. Visibility collapsed to yards. The forest fought back with silence and confusion, and the enemy knew every fold of the ground. The Keystone Division was asked to attack where attack barely made sense. They advanced anyway. Days turned into weeks. Units were rotated, then returned. Losses mounted. Exhaustion became constant. Progress was measured in yards that cost lives. The forest did not break, but neither did the men sent into it. They endured conditions that pushed human limits, holding ground where withdrawal would have been understandable, but unacceptable. And then winter came again. When the German Ardennes Offensive erupted, the 28th Infantry Division was directly in its path, thinly spread, exhausted from earlier fighting, and holding what was believed to be a quiet sector. The division absorbed the initial shock of one of the war's last great offensives. Lines bent, units were scattered, communications collapsed. The division did not shatter, but it paid dearly to slow an advance that depended on speed. In places like Clairvaux, Saint-Vith, and along frozen roads and forests, the Keystone Division fought delaying actions that bought time at enormous cost. They were outnumbered, often outgunned, frequently cut off, and yet their resistance disrupted timetables that could not afford disruption. Those delays mattered. They allowed defenses to form farther west. They bought hours that became days. They helped turn momentum into overreach. After the Ardennes, the division rebuilt once more and moved forward. Again, across rivers, through towns, into Germany itself. The war by then felt heavy, inevitable, and relentless. Resistance continued, losses continued, but the end was approaching, and the Keystone Division carried on, step by step, until it could finally stop. The story of the 28th Infantry Division is not one of easy victories. It is a story of endurance under conditions that broke many others, of holding ground when retreat felt logical, of citizen soldiers who carried the weight of a war that asked too much and then asked again. They did not chase legend. They became part of it quietly, through persistence, sacrifice, and refusal to quit. Tonight, we return to that journey. To the forests that swallowed sound, to the frozen roads where time was bought with lives, to a division that wore its symbol not as decoration but as responsibility, to the complete history of the Keystone Division and the war it endured. Before we go any further, I want to bring you into this moment as well. Where in the world are you listening from right now, and what time has settled around you there? Is it late at night, early morning, or somewhere in between? If hearing about quiet resilience, shared burden, and the cost of holding on gives you something steady to listen to when the day finally slows, consider subscribing, not for excitement, but for continuity. So, these long, thoughtful journeys through history are always here when you need them. Settle in. This is not a fast story. It is a heavy one. And it deserves time. October 17th, 1940. Rain hammers the parade ground at Fort Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania. 17,000 men stand in formation, water streaming from their steel helmets, boots sinking into mud that smells like coal dust and wet wool. Most are in their late 20s. Many served in the last war. They watch as a colonel unfurls federalization orders that will transform weekend warriors into the professional force America doesn't yet know it needs. In the front rank, a master sergeant named William Davies grips a rifle his father carried at Belleau Wood. His son, barely 18, stands 3 rows behind him. 3 generations of Pennsylvania men about to become one division. The 28th Infantry Division, the Keystone Division, is going to war again. But this division carries weight no other American unit will bear. The 28th traces its lineage back to 1747, when Benjamin Franklin organized colonial militia companies to fight in the French and Indian War. It's the oldest division in the United States Army. The men don't fully understand what that means yet. They will. The division fought in every major American conflict: the Revolution, the War of 1812, the Mexican War, the Civil War on both sides, the Spanish-American War, and the nightmare trenches of the First World War. In 1918, the 28th earned its nickname, the Bloody Bucket. German soldiers saw the red keystone patch, Pennsylvania's state symbol, on American shoulders and thought it looked like a bucket dipped in blood. The name stuck. Now, in 1940, as fascism devours Europe, America is calling on its oldest warriors one more time. The composition of this division is unlike anything the Army is creating elsewhere. 16,987 men report for duty that October, drawn almost entirely from Pennsylvania's National Guard. The 109th, 110th, 111th, and 112th Infantry regiments form the division's core. These aren't random conscripts scattered from across the nation. 73% come from Pennsylvania, another 11% from New Jersey, 8 from Maryland, 5 from Virginia. Many are coal miners from Scranton and Wilkes-Barre, steel workers from Pittsburgh and Bethlehem, farmers from Lancaster County. They know each other. They went to the same schools, worship at the same churches, drink at the same bars. Company C of the 112th Regiment has 84 men from a 6-block radius in Reading. When the Army mobilizes the 28th, it's mobilizing entire neighborhoods. But the division has a problem the War Department didn't anticipate. The authorized strength for a full-strength infantry division in 1940 is only 8,321 men. The 28th shows up with more than double that number. Suddenly, the Army faces an impossible task, telling 8,000 Pennsylvania men they can't serve with their friends, their neighbors, their brothers. Over the next 3 months, a brutal selection process unfolds. Officers evaluate who stays and who goes home. Older men are released first. Veterans of the Great War who wanted another chance to serve. Then men with essential civilian jobs. Doctors, engineers, skilled tradesmen the home front will need. By January 1941, the division has shed its excess personnel. Those who remain feel chosen. They also feel the weight of representing those sent home. February 1941, Camp Livingston, Louisiana. The division arrives for training in weather that makes Pennsylvania winters feel gentle. Humidity crushes, mosquitoes swarm. The Louisiana swamps become their proving ground. During war games against regular Army divisions, something unexpected happens. Other units start targeting men wearing the red keystone patch with particular aggression. At first, officers think it's coincidence. Then a captured enemy soldier during a training exercise explains, "Everyone knows the Bloody Bucket story. Everyone wants to be the unit that beats the famous 28th. What was meant to be unit pride becomes a target. The division learns its first hard lesson. Reputation cuts both ways. Legacy can be inspiration or burden, sometimes simultaneously. The older soldiers share stories the short. Younger men don't want to hear. In the barracks after training, First World War veterans talk about the Meuse-Argonne Offensive. They describe German artillery that turned entire companies into red mist. They talk about mustard gas, trench foot, rats the size of cats feeding on corpses in no man's land. A captain named Robert Miller finds his father's old trench map from 1918 while sorting through family papers during a leave home. He unfolds it carefully. The map shows French villages his current division is studying for hypothetical European deployment. The same villages, the same roads, the same river crossings. His father marked enemy positions in pencil that's faded but still visible. Miller stares at the map for an hour, feeling history collapse into the present. When he returns to camp, he doesn't mention what he found. but he keeps the map. December 7th, 1941 changes everything. The division is scattered across 3 states on weekend passes when news of Pearl Harbor breaks over radios in diners, homes, and movie theaters. Men scramble back to their units. The recall order demands everyone return within 72 hours. Trains are commandeered, buses rerouted. Private James Kowalski hitchhikes 200 miles from his family's farm to reach his company. He arrives with 11 minutes to spare, still wearing civilian clothes, carrying his uniform in a duffel bag. The leisurely pace of peacetime training ends instantly. The division now trains with the understanding that they will see combat. Not might. Will. The question is no longer if they're going to war, but when and where and how many will come home. January 1942. The trains pull out of Indiantown Gap heading south. Families crowd the platforms, mothers, wives, girlfriends, children who don't understand why daddy has to leave. One soldier's diary entry captures the moment with painful simplicity. Dad says the Germans are different this time. Meaner. I hope he's wrong. The comment reveals something crucial about the division's mindset. These men, especially the ones whose fathers fought in the Great War, understand that war is an adventure. They've seen what it does. They've watched their fathers wake up screaming from nightmares 20 years after the armistice. They've noticed how their fathers flinch at loud noises, how they drink too much on November 11th, how they never talk about certain battles. The 28th Division isn't marching off to war with illusions about glory. They're marching off with dread, determination, and the terrible knowledge that what's coming will change them forever. What nobody knows yet is that this division will train for 30 months before seeing combat. 30 months. 2.5 years of preparation while the war rages in North Africa, Italy, the Pacific. Other divisions created after Pearl Harbor will deploy within a year, some within months. The 28th will wait, and train, and wait some more. This extended preparation will become both the division's greatest advantage and most bitter frustration. They will become one of the best trained divisions in the entire European theater. They will also watch the war pass them by, wondering if they'll ever get their chance to prove themselves. The men don't understand it yet, but the army is saving them for something specific, something terrible, something that will require every minute of those 30 months to survive. The Ghost Regiment is becoming real. As winter turns to spring in 1942, the 28th settles into a brutal training cycle that will break some men and forge others into something harder than Pennsylvania steel. They don't know they're being prepared for the deadliest forest in Europe. They don't know they'll face the last great German offensive of the war. They don't know their division will suffer the second highest casualty percentage of any American division in the European theater. They don't know that entire Pennsylvania towns will lose multiple men in single days. They don't know their sacrifice will save the Allied advance. They don't know any of this yet. Right now, they're just cold, wet, homesick men wondering why the army mobilized them so early, only to keep them waiting. The answer to that question lies ahead, in the snow-covered hills of Belgium, where the Bloody Bucket will earn its name all over again. March 19th, 42. The Louisiana swamps swallow men whole. The 28th Division begins a 120-mile forced march through terrain that feels more like hell than training ground. Temperature climbs to 98 degrees. Humidity makes every breath feel like drowning. Men carry full combat loads, 60 pounds of equipment, ammunition, weapons, rations. The division commander, Major General Edward Martin, sets an impossible pace, 3 miles per hour with full gear in swamp country. Within 6 hours, soldiers start collapsing. By nightfall, the division aid stations overflow with men suffering heat exhaustion, dehydration, heat stroke. 347 men require hospitalization. 4 die. Their names are Private Thomas Edwards, Private Michael Rossi, Corporal Daniel O'Brien, and Private First Class James Murphy. The division holds a memorial service. General Martin doesn't slow the pace. He believes the training must be harder than combat, or combat will kill them all. The men hate him. They also learn to keep marching. August 1942 brings humiliation that shakes the division to its foundation. War Department observers arrive at Camp Livingston to evaluate the 28th's combat readiness. They use a scale of 1 to 4, with 4 meaning ready for immediate deployment. The observers watch the division conduct maneuvers. They evaluate coordination between infantry, artillery, and armor. They test communications, logistics, medical, evacuation procedures. Then they file their report. The 28th Infantry Division receives a rating of 2, not ready for combat. The words devastate the division. 2 years of training, thousands of miles marched, countless exercises completed, and the verdict is failure. General Martin is quietly relieved of command within weeks. The division gets a new commander, Major General Lloyd Brown. The message from the War Department is clear: get better or stay home. General Brown transforms the division with methods that feel like warfare against their own limitations. He identifies the core problem. The 28th trains each component separately, then expects them to magically cooperate in battle. Infantry doesn't understand how to call artillery support. Artillery doesn't know how to protect advancing infantry. Tank destroyers operate independently, uncoordinated with riflemen. Brown forces integration. In February 1943, he conducts a massive combined arms exercise. Infantry, artillery, armor, engineers, medics, all must work as one organism. The exercise is chaos. Units can't communicate. Artillery lands on friendly positions. Tanks outrun their infantry support and get isolated. But Brown keeps running the exercise, again and again and again. By the 5th iteration, something clicks. Officers start anticipating what other units need. Coordination improves. The division begins functioning as a division, not just regiments wearing the same patch. June 1943, Fort Jackson, South Carolina. The division conducts live fire exercises. Real ammunition, real explosives, real danger. This is where training stops being theoretical. Private James Hendricks, assigned to Company B of the 110th Regiment, advances with his squad during an exercise coordinating infantry movement with artillery support. The plan calls for artillery to cease fire exactly 3 minutes before infantry crosses a specific terrain feature. Timing is critical. Hendricks' squad moves forward on schedule. The artillery doesn't stop. A 105mm shell lands 30 yards from Hendricks' position. Shrapnel tears through his body. He dies before medics reach him. The division stops the exercise. An investigation determines communication failure. The artillery unit didn't receive the ceasefire order. It's nobody's fault and everybody's fault. The division holds a ceremony for Private Hendricks. Every man attends. His death reshapes how the division thinks about training. These exercises can kill you. Combat definitely will kill you. Excellence isn't optional. The winter of 1943 brings a test that proves the division's transformation. January in Tennessee. The War Department orders the 28th to conduct sustained operations in sub-zero conditions without resupply. It's a simulation of what they might face in a European winter if supply lines fail. For 14 days, the division operates in temperatures that drop to 8 degrees Fahrenheit. Snow falls continuously. Men burn fence posts for warmth when their fuel supplies run out. Then they burn furniture scavenged from abandoned cabins. Then they huddle together for body heat and try to sleep without freezing. Rations run out on day 9. Soldiers eat whatever they can find: squirrels, rabbits. One company catches fish through holes in a frozen stream. Medical supplies vanish by day 11. The division continues operating. On day 14, observers call off the exercise. Every battalion achieved its objectives, despite conditions designed to break them. The War Department observers note in their report, significant improvement since August evaluation. But training exacts a price beyond the obvious. By the time the 28th completes its preparation cycle in November 1943, the division has suffered 23 training deaths, 412 serious injuries. Men die from training. Accidents, vehicle crashes, drownings during river crossing exercises, one from a parachute malfunction during airborne infiltration training. These casualties exceed some divisions' combat losses in entire campaigns. The division maintains a cemetery at Fort Jackson for men who died during training. Their families receive folded flags and sympathy letters, explaining their sons died serving their country, even though they never left American soil. The survivors carry guilt. Every training death raises the same question. If we're losing men in Louisiana and Tennessee, what will happen when we face actual Germans? November 1943. Finally, the War Department rating changes. The 28th receives a combat readiness evaluation of 4. They're cleared for deployment. The division celebrates, but the deployment orders don't come. December passes. January 1944 arrives. Still no orders. The men grow frustrated, then bitter. They watch other divisions, ones created after Pearl Harbor, ones with less training, ship out to England, to Italy, to the Pacific. The 28th remains in the United States. Rumors spread wildly. Some say the division is cursed, that the War Department will never deploy them. Others claim they're being held for the invasion of Japan. A few whisper that nobody wants the National Guard Division because regular Army officers don't trust citizen soldiers. The truth is simpler and more complicated. The Army is saving the 28th for a specific role in a specific place at a specific time, but they can't tell the division that without revealing invasion plans. The waiting becomes its own form of torture. Morale problems emerge that all the training in the world didn't solve. Men who enlisted together in 1940 expect to fight together. Instead, they watch the war from training camps. Some request transfers to divisions deploying immediately. Most requests are denied. The division runs refresher, training courses, the same exercises they have done dozens of times. Proficiency improves to levels rarely seen. A company commander in the 112th Regiment notes in his diary, "The men could conduct a battalion assault in their sleep. They know every weapon system, every tactic, every contingency. They're the most prepared soldiers in the Army, and they're wasting away in South Carolina, feeling forgotten." The division doesn't know that in 6 months, their preparation will mean the difference between catastrophic defeat and desperate survival. July 1944. The orders finally arrive. Prepare for immediate deployment to European theater of operations. The division has 72 hours to pack, process, and move. After 30 months of waiting, they get 3 days' notice. The speed is intentional. The Army doesn't want soldiers dwelling on what's coming. Men write last letters home. Some write 2 versions. The cheerful one for their families, and the honest, one sealed with instructions to open only if they don't return. Chaplains conduct services every 6 hours for men seeking final communion or confession. The division quartermaster issues new equipment, M1, Garand rifles to replace the older models used in training, updated radios, winter gear that seems excessive for summer deployment. The men notice the winter equipment. They wonder where they're going that requires preparation for cold weather. Nobody tells them. They'll find out in the Hürtgen Forest, when the cold becomes another enemy trying to kill them. August 3rd, 1944. The 28th Division boards transport ships in New York Harbor. 14 ships carry the division across the Atlantic. As the convoy pulls away from the docks, men crowd the rails for a last look at the Statue of Liberty. A chaplain standing on the deck of Transport Ship 17 writes in his journal, "Many wept openly, Pennsylvania going to war. The men don't know they're heading to a war that's already 2 months past D-Day. They don't know they'll miss the dramatic landing everyone imagined. They don't know they're being sent to replace divisions that have been chewed up and spit out by the meat grinder of hedgerow combat. They don't know their first battle will come in a forest so dark that men fight at arm's length without seeing each other. They don't know that their longest day of training in the Louisiana swamps will seem easy compared to 16 hours in the Hürtgen Forest. They just know they're finally going to war. Finally getting their chance to prove the Bloody Bucket reputation wasn't won by different men in a different war. They'll get that chance, and it will cost them everything. April 19th, 43, the Recreation Hall at Fort Jackson. 14 men from the 112th Regiment gather around a map of Scranton, Pennsylvania, that one soldier brought from home. They're playing a game, marking on the map where each man lives. As they place pins, a pattern emerges that none of them consciously noticed before. All 14 live within 6 blocks of each other in the same neighborhood. They attend the same church, St. Stanislaus. They drink at the same bar, Kowalski's Tavern on Cedar Avenue. 3 of them graduated from the same high school class in 1938. 2 are cousins. 1 is dating another's sister. They've been training together for 2 years, but suddenly they realize their families probably see each other more often than the soldiers do. Company C of the 112th isn't just a military unit. It's a neighborhood in uniform. This geographic concentration defines the 28th Division in ways the War Department never anticipated. 73% of the division comes from Pennsylvania, 11% from New Jersey, 8% from Maryland, 5% from Virginia. But statistics don't capture the reality. The statistics don't show that Company A of the 109th Regiment has 62 men from Allegheny County, or that 3rd Battalion of the 110th draws heavily from the coal mining towns around Wilkes-Barre, or that when the division holds religious services, 64% attend Protestant services, 31% Catholic, 3% Jewish, 2% other, numbers that precisely mirror Pennsylvania's religious demographics. The 28th isn't a cross-section of America. It's Pennsylvania going to war. The implications won't become clear until casualties start coming home to towns where everyone knows everyone, where loss ripples through entire communities. July 19th, 43. A Western Union telegram arrives at the Kowalski House in Scranton. Private Thomas Kowalski's father, a First World War veteran who served in the 28th Division at Chateau Thierry, has died of a heart attack. Thomas receives emergency leave to attend the funeral. He expects a few family members and maybe some fellow parishioners at the service. Instead, he walks into St. Stanislaus Church and finds his entire platoon in dress uniform. 34 men traveled from Fort Jackson to Scranton on their own money and leave time to honor the father of their comrade. They didn't ask permission. They didn't file paperwork. They just came. The Scranton Times publishes a photo. Division comes home to honor their own. The image shows uniformed soldiers carrying the casket of a man who wore the same bloody bucket patch in a different war. The men understand something in that moment. They're not just serving together. They're family in a way that transcends normal military bonds. October 19th, 43. Company C of the 112th Regiment does something unorthodox. Instead of having officers appoint squad leaders, standard military practice, the company commander allows squads to elect their leaders by secret ballot. It's a gamble. The Army operates on hierarchy and command authority, not democracy. But the company commander, Captain Robert Davies, understands his unit. These men have known each other since childhood. They've worked in the same mines, played on the same baseball teams, dated the same girls. They know who the natural leaders are, better than any officer evaluation could determine. The election happens. When the ballots are counted, the chosen squad leaders aren't necessarily the men with the highest test scores or the best performance in training exercises. They're the men their neighbors trust. The men who helped their friends find jobs during the Depression. The men who showed up when someone's barn needed rebuilding. War Department observers note the election with disapproval, but the company commander's regimental CO approves it anyway. They're Pennsylvania, he says. Let them be Pennsylvania. December 19th, 43. The division holds a holiday concert. The 28th Division Band, drawn from Pennsylvania, musicians who played in town bands and church orchestras before the war, performs for 4,000 soldiers, crammed into a Fort Jackson auditorium. The set list includes traditional military marches, Christmas carols, and big band standards. Then, near the end, the band strikes up the Pennsylvania polka. 4,000 men, standing shoulder to shoulder, homesick and exhausted from 2 years of training, begin singing in unison. The words don't matter as much as the sound. It's the sound of Pennsylvania. Coal country and steel towns and farming communities all finding their voice together. War Department observers attending the concert note something in their reports. This never happens in regular Army divisions. Divisions built from nationwide conscription don't have shared cultural touchstones like this. The observers don't fully grasp what they're witnessing. Unit cohesion at a level the Army can't manufacture or train. It can only happen organically when you put an entire state in uniform. March 1944 brings the division face to face with a policy born from tragedy. After the 5 Sullivan brothers died together, when USS Juneau sank in November 1942, the War Department implemented the sole survivor policy, separating family members to different units. The policy reaches the 28th Division belatedly. Personnel officers identify 73 pairs of brothers serving in the same companies. The division orders begin. Brothers will be separated to different regiments, minimizing the chance of family catastrophe. 2 of those brothers are Robert and William Bisecker from Lancaster County. Both enlisted together in 1940. Both trained together for 3 years. When the separation order arrives, both refuse. They file formal requests to remain together, citing the length of their service and the voluntary nature of their enlistment. The request goes up the chain of command. It reaches General Brown. He reads it and writes a single sentence on the approval line. "We enlisted together, we'll fight together." The Beisecker brothers remain in Company K, 112th Regiment. Neither will survive the Hürtgen Forest. The religious composition of the division reveals another dimension of its identity. Pennsylvania in the 1940s is predominantly Christian, split between Protestant denominations and Catholic. The 28th reflects this perfectly. Division chaplains include Lutheran, Methodist, Presbyterian, Baptist, Catholic, and Jewish clergy. Religious services become one of the few moments when ranks dissolve. Generals and privates kneel side by side. Officers and enlisted men share communion. Jewish soldiers gather for Sabbath services led by Rabbi Samuel Blinder, who volunteered as a chaplain despite being exempt from service due to his age. He tells the Jewish soldiers, "You carry two identities now, American and Jewish. Both are at stake in this war." The chaplains become the division's conscience, the men soldiers turn to when training deaths occur, when fears about combat become overwhelming, when they need to confess doubts about their ability to kill another human being. Education levels matter more than the Army initially recognizes. The average soldier in the 28th Division completed 9.7 years of schooling, higher than the Army average of 8.9 years. This reflects Pennsylvania's strong public school system and the state's industrial economy that valued basic education. The higher education level manifests in unexpected ways. The division has lower rates of disciplinary problems. Soldiers grasp complex tactical concepts faster. They adapt more quickly to new weapon systems. Officers can delegate more responsibility to non-commissioned officers because sergeants and corporals can read maps, interpret orders, and execute missions with less direct supervision. But education also means these men think more deeply about what they're being asked to do. They question, they analyze, they understand consequences. This becomes both strength and burden. The family military service statistics tell a story the division carries like invisible weight. 41% of the men have fathers or uncles who served in the First World War. 18% have fathers who specifically served in the 28th Division. These soldiers grow up hearing war stories, though most of their fathers don't tell stories, they tell warnings. Don't volunteer for patrols. Don't trust officers who haven't been in combat. Artillery kills more men than rifles. Gas is worse than bullets. The Germans are professional soldiers. Respect that. These inherited lessons shape how the division thinks about the coming war. The sons of First World War veterans don't romanticize combat. They fear it with informed dread, but they also feel obligation. Their fathers fought Germany once and won. Now, Germany has risen again, worse than before, and it falls to the sons to finish what the fathers started. What the division doesn't understand yet is how their cohesion will affect casualties. When entire neighborhoods serve together, bonds are powerful. Men fight harder to protect friends they have known since childhood. They take risks to rescue wounded comrades they went to school with. Squad cohesion is extraordinary. Soldiers anticipate each other's movements, communicate with minimal orders, coordinate naturally. This saves lives. But it also means when casualties come, they devastate. In a normal division, when a soldier dies, his squad mourns and moves on. In the 28th, when a soldier from Scranton dies, his death reaches back to Scranton, where his family knows the families of 10 other soldiers in his unit, and the grief multiplies. The division's greatest strength, its hometown identity, will become its cruelest burden. The men don't know this yet. They will learn it in Pennsylvania newspapers that publish casualty lists and see multiple names from the same streets, the same churches, the same high school classes. The Bloody Bucket isn't just a division, it's Pennsylvania's sons going to war together, bleeding together, dying together, and being mourned together. July 22nd, 1944. New York Harbor. Convoy WP-37 pulls away from the docks, 14 transport ships carrying the 28th Division, toward a war already 2 months old. Men crowd the rails watching the Statue of Liberty shrink into the morning haze. Some wave to nobody in particular, others stand silent. A few cry openly without shame. Chaplain Michael O'Connor, assigned to the 110th Regiment, moves among the soldiers on the deck of Transport 17. He writes in his journal that evening, "Many wept openly, Pennsylvania going to war. What he doesn't write, but certainly feels, is the weight of expectation these men carry. They've trained for 30 months. They've waited while other divisions deployed within a year of formation. They've endured the humiliation of not ready ratings and the frustration of missing D-Day. Now they're finally crossing the Atlantic, and every man wonders the same thing. Will the war be over before we get there? August 3rd, 1944. Wales. The convoy reaches Swansea on the Welsh coast. The division disembarks into a country already crowded with American, British, and Canadian forces preparing for, or recovering from, the Normandy invasion. Local civilians watch with curiosity as 14,000 Americans flood into their communities. The logistical challenge is immediate. Where do you put an entire division in a country already housing multiple Allied armies? The solution spreads the 28th across 47 villages in Wales and southwest England. Division headquarters establishes itself at Tenby, a coastal town in Pembrokeshire. Regiments scatter across the countryside. Some companies find themselves billeted in villages so small that the American presence outnumbers local residents. Private James Mitchell writes home, "We're staying in a town that has one pub, one church, and about 50 people. They look at us like we're from another planet." The division discovers it missed the war's defining moment. D-Day happened June 6th. The 28th arrives August 3rd. 58 days late. The beaches are secured. The hedgerow fighting in Normandy is grinding toward conclusion. American forces are preparing for the breakout that will liberate Paris. And the 28th Division sits in Wales, training for an amphibious assault that already happened. October brings particularly bitter irony. The division conducts extensive amphibious training at Woolacombe Beach in Devon. They practice beach landings, obstacle clearance, coordinated assaults from landing craft. The exercises mirror D-Day preparation exactly. Every soldier realizes they're practicing for an invasion. That's 2 months in the past. Morale crashes. Men feel cheated. Some write angry letters home complaining about army incompetence. Others grow quiet and withdrawn. Officers struggle to maintain training discipline when everyone knows the training is pointless. December 1944. Christmas in England. The division remains in its scattered billets across the British countryside. Still, no deployment orders. Rumors multiply like viruses. Some men hear they'll garrison Germany after the war ends, punishment for missing the actual fighting. Others claim the division will invade Japan once Germany falls. A persistent rumor suggests the 28th is being held back because National Guard divisions aren't trusted for combat operations. This last rumor cuts deepest because it feeds existing insecurities. Are they second-rate soldiers because they're not regular army? Did all that training mean nothing? One soldier writes in his diary, 3 years of the hardest. Training the army could devise. And we're going to sit out of the war in English villages drinking warm beer. The entry captures the division's crisis of purpose. They volunteered to fight fascism. Instead, they're marking time while the war happens elsewhere. What the division doesn't know is that the delay is strategic. Supreme Allied Command has specific plans for specific divisions. Some divisions are expendable, newly formed, minimally trained, sent into combat to hold positions or absorb casualties while veteran units maneuver. Other divisions are strategic assets, deployed only when and where their capabilities match critical needs. The 28th falls into the latter category. The extended training, the high readiness ratings, the exceptional unit cohesion, all of this marks the division as a premium asset. The problem is, nobody can tell the division this without revealing operational plans. So, the men wait, bitter and confused, while Eisenhower's staff calculates where Pennsylvania's sons will best serve the Allied cause. The billet experience changes the division in unexpected ways. Living among British civilians for 11 months creates relationships impossible in combat zones. Soldiers attend local churches, date local women, befriend local children. Some companies adopt British customs, afternoon tea, pub culture, football, soccer, matches with village teams. The cultural exchange goes both directions. Welsh villagers learn about American baseball, jazz music, and the peculiar accent of Pennsylvania coal country. But these friendships also deepen the soldiers' understanding of what's at stake. They see British rationing, bombed cities, families with empty chairs at dinner tables. They meet children who have been evacuated from London, Elderly men who survived the First World War only to watch their sons go off to this one. The war stops being abstract. It becomes personal in a new way. These Welsh families have been fighting since 1939. The least Pennsylvania can do is finally show up. January 8th, 1945. Everything changes. Encrypted orders arrive at division headquarters in Tenby. Prepare for immediate combat deployment to France. The division has 72 hours to pack, process, and move. After 11 months of waiting, they get 3 days' notice. The sudden urgency is shocking and energizing. Men who spent months depressed about missing the war now scramble to prepare for it. Quartermaster units issue winter combat gear, heavy coats, wool socks, insulated boots, white camouflage suits. The winter equipment seems excessive. It's July when they arrived in England. Now it's January and they're getting Arctic gear. Officers brief company commanders. The division is going to France, then to an active combat zone in Belgium and Luxembourg. Details are classified. The men pack anyway, their 11 months of frustration transforming into nervous energy. The train journey from Wales to Bulge. The English coast reveals what the division has become. As the trains pass through villages where companies were billeted, civilians gather at stations to wave goodbye. Entire towns turn out. Women who dated American soldiers stand weeping on platforms. Children who played baseball with Americans hold handmade signs. "Good luck, Keystone," and "Come back safe." One elderly British veteran of the First World War stands at attention, saluting as the troop train passes. The gesture moves the soldiers more than they expect. This man survived the trenches. He knows what combat means. His salute isn't congratulatory, it's acknowledgement, recognition, respect for men heading into the meat grinder. Some American soldiers salute back through the train windows. Others turn away, unable to meet the old soldier's eyes. The crossing from England to France happens in darkness. The division boards transport ships at night, crosses the channel in darkness, and disembarks on Normandy beaches in pre-dawn January cold. The beaches still bear scars from D-Day 7 months earlier. Destroyed German bunkers crouch on the bluffs. Burned-out landing craft rust in the surf. Temporary cemeteries stretch inland, row after row of white crosses, marking Americans who died in the first hours of the invasion. The 28th walks past these graves on their way inland. The contrast is stark. The men buried here died on June 6th. The men walking past them arrived in France on January 11th. The dead fought on the most important day of the war. The living missed it entirely. Private Daniel Torres later writes, "The beach smells like death and rust. We're 7 months late. All these boys died while we were training in Louisiana and sitting in Wales. I feel ashamed we weren't here." The division's first night in France shatters any remaining illusions about missing the war. As darkness falls, they hear it, the distant rumble of artillery. It's constant, rhythmic, like thunder that never stops. The sound comes from the east, from the front lines still hundreds of miles away. But even at this distance, the artillery is audible. Some men struggle to sleep. Others lie awake listening, trying to imagine what it sounds like when you're close. A sergeant with First World War experience tells his squad, "That's what victory sounds like. We're feeding the beast. Shells and men. That's how we win. We have more shells and more men than the Germans do, and we keep feeding the beast until there's no more Germany left." His explanation doesn't comfort anyone. It just makes the arithmetic of war clearer. Somewhere ahead, American divisions are bleeding in forests and fields. The 28th is moving forward to join them. The 30 months of training are over. The actual war, finally, is about to begin. July 22, 1944, Utah Beach, Normandy. The 28th Division steps off landing craft onto sand still littered with war's debris. It's 40 days after D-Day. The dramatic invasion the men imagined participating in is ancient history now. Instead of storming beaches under fire, they walk past destroyed German fortifications, discarded equipment, and hastily marked minefields. A soldier's boot lies on the sand, still laced, separated from its owner by explosion or artillery. Nobody touches it. The division forms up on the beach and begins the march inland. Private Thomas Kowalski writes in his diary, "The beach smells like death and rust. All this happened without us. The smell is real, a combination of metal oxidizing in salt water, unrecovered bodies decomposing in summer heat, and something else, something chemical and burnt, that veterans of the landing refused to explain to men who weren't there. July 24 to 25, night convoy through liberated France. The division moves toward the front in truck convoys that stretch for miles, headlights blacked out, drivers navigating by moonlight and the dim taillights of the vehicle ahead. They pass through villages destroyed by fighting, roofs collapsed, walls cratered by tank shells, churches reduced to rubble, but they also pass through villages intact, where French civilians line the roads offering wine, flowers, kisses. Young women climb onto trucks to kiss American soldiers. Old men stand with hands over hearts. Children wave small American flags. It's surreal. The celebration feels genuine, but distant artillery reminds everyone that liberation has a price being paid elsewhere. Some soldiers accept the wine and flowers gratefully. Others feel uncomfortable with the adulation. They haven't done anything yet except train and wait, and finally show up 7 weeks late. July 26. Assembly area near Condé-sur-Vire. The division reaches its staging area and gets its first real look at what modern combat produces. The assembly area was a battlefield 2 weeks earlier. Evidence remains. Destroyed German tanks sit in fields, black burn from fire, turrets blown off by ammunition explosions. American tanks, too, knocked out by German anti-tank guns, their armor pierced by 88mm rounds that punch through steel like paper. Abandoned foxholes still contain ammunition, ration tins, personal effects, and graves. Rows of fresh graves marked with helmets on rifles stuck bayonet first into the ground. Dog tags dangle from the rifle stocks. The division walks through this landscape of recent death in silence. This is the first time most of them understand viscerally what war produces. Not victory or defeat. Just destruction. Just death. One soldier vomits when he realizes the dark stain in a foxhole is dried blood, and the flies swarming around it are feeding on something organic still remaining. August 8th, 1944. The 28th Division enters combat. They're replacing the 8th Infantry Division in what's described as a routine sector near the Vire River. The briefing emphasizes routine, quiet, good place for the division to acclimate to frontline conditions. The 8th Division soldiers leaving the sector tell a different story. Their eyes have the 1,000-yard stare veterans develop. They speak in short sentences. Many don't speak at all. One captain from the 8th Division finds the 28th's intelligence officer and says quietly, "Your maps are wrong. Everything is wrong. The Germans are stronger than briefed. Good luck." Then he climbs into a truck and leaves. The 28th's intelligence officer reports the conversation to division headquarters. The report is noted and filed. Nobody changes the plan. Routine sector, good for breaking in new divisions. August 8th, evening, first contact. A platoon from Company B, 110th Regiment, conducts a standard reconnaissance patrol. The mission is simple. Move forward 1,000 yards, observe German positions, return with intelligence. They advance through hedgerow country, bocage, the sicle, French call it, fields divided by ancient earthen walls 10 to 15 feet high, topped with dense vegetation. Perfect defensive terrain. The platoon reaches its objective and observes. They see a German bunker that doesn't appear on their maps. They watch and count. 6 Germans visible, small position, lightly defended. Then the Germans open fire. The platoon realizes the 6 visible Germans were bait. The actual position is a company-strength fortification with interlocking machine gun fields. The platoon leader screams into his radio for artillery support. The response comes back. Negative, friendly forces too close. The platoon tries to retreat. German fire follows them. 6 men die in 90 seconds. The survivors make it back to American lines and report. The intelligence is catastrophically wrong. August 14th, 1944. The division attacks toward the Vire River. The plan assumes weakened German resistance pulling back toward Germany. The reality is 2nd SS, Panzer Division, Das Reich, a veteran unit transferred from the Eastern Front, elite soldiers with years of combat experience. The 28th advances expecting minimal resistance. Instead, they walk into a carefully prepared killing zone. German machine guns open fire from concealed positions. Mortars drop on pre-registered coordinates. The division's first day of sustained combat produces 341 casualties. The division advances 4/10 of a mile. That's the exchange rate, 850 men per mile. Company commanders start doing grim mathematics. At this rate, the division will be destroyed before reaching any objective of strategic importance. The hedgerow terrain nullifies every American advantage. The United States military dominates through firepower, artillery, armor, air support, but in bocage country, those advantages evaporate. Artillery observers can't see more than 100 yards. Tank destroyers can't maneuver. Fighter bombers can't identify targets through the vegetation canopy. Meanwhile, German defenders know every field, every hedge, every sight line. They've had weeks to prepare positions, dig trenches, position machine guns, register mortar coordinates. The 28th Division has superior numbers, better equipment, unlimited ammunition. None of it matters when you can't see the enemy until you're within rifle range. The division spent 30 months training for mobile warfare, combined arms operations, coordinated maneuver. Hedgerow combat is none of those things. It's small unit fighting at close range, slow and bloody, where experience counts more than firepower. The German 2nd SS Panzer Division has experience. The 28th has training. Training isn't enough. August 15th. Division casualties exceed 1,000. The number shocks command staff who expected light losses in a routine sector. Medical evacuation systems strain. Aid stations overflow with wounded. Chaplains move constantly, between dying men, offering final rites, writing last letters home. The division continues attacking because those are the orders. Take the Vire River crossings. Secure the flank for the upcoming breakout. The strategic objective makes sense. The tactical reality is butchery. Company K of the 112th Regiment enters combat with 187 men. After 3 days, 73 remain combat effective. The others are dead, wounded, or missing. The company receives orders to continue attacking. The company commander requests clarification. With what? He's lost 60% of his unit. The response from battalion: accomplish the mission with available forces. He does. By August 18th, Company K has 34 men left. August 22nd, the division pauses to reorganize. The first 2 weeks of combat produced 1,075 casualties, 116 killed in action, 892 wounded, 67 missing. That's 7 banderoles. 0.6% of division strength gone in 14 days. If casualties continue at this rate, the 28th will be combat ineffective in 10 weeks. Replacement soldiers arrive, young, terrified, untrained in hedgerow tactics. Veterans look at them with pity and resentment. These replacements didn't endure the 30 months of preparation. They got basic training and were shipped directly to France. Now veterans have to keep them alive while teaching them lessons bought with blood. The relationship between veteran and replacement becomes the division's new dynamic. Those who were in Normandy and those who came after. Those who earned the bloody bucket patch and those who merely wear it. The division learns a truth about combat that no training could teach. Preparation matters, but the enemy gets a vote. The 28th trained harder and longer than almost any American division. They arrived in France with extraordinary readiness ratings. None of it protected them from the fundamental equation of combat. When professionals fight professionals, both sides bleed. The 2nd SS Panzer Division isn't random conscripts. They're veteran soldiers who survived years on the Eastern Front fighting the Red Army. They know how to kill efficiently. The 28th's advantages, better logistics, air superiority, artillery superiority, don't matter in terrain that negates those advantages. What matters is small unit leadership, individual soldier skill, and willingness to close with the enemy at lethal range. The division has those things. So does the 2nd SS Panzer Division. The result is a grinding battle of attrition, where both sides pay in blood for yards of Norman hedgerow that will be forgotten by historians writing about the great sweep of the Liberation Campaign. The men bleeding in those hedgerows won't forget. The ones who survive will remember every field, every hedge, every foxhole where friends died. The bloody bucket is earning its name. This is only the beginning. November 2nd, 1944. The edge of the Hürtgen Forest. The 28th Division marches into darkness at noon. The forest canopy blocks 90% of sunlight even on clear days. November brings perpetual gloom. Trees tower 80 to 100 feet, dense pine and fir that turn the forest floor into twilight. General Norman Cota, the division's new commander, meets with the outgoing 9th Infantry Division leadership. The 9th has been fighting in the Hürtgen for weeks. Their commander, pale and shaking, tells Cota, "This isn't war, it's murder." Cota watches men from the 9th stumble out of the forest. They have 1,000-yard stares. Some are crying. Others walk like automatons, mechanically placing one foot in front of another. A private sits on the ground rocking back and forth, hands over his ears, trying to block out artillery that stopped firing hours ago. The 9th Infantry Division entered the Hürtgen at 90% strength. They're leaving at 42%. Cota turns to his staff officers and says, "Get the men ready." November 3rd, morning. The 110th Regiment advances into the forest. The orders are simple. Attack toward Schmidt, a village 3 miles inside the forest. Intelligence estimates light German resistance, possibly rearguard units covering a withdrawal. The regiment moves forward in standard formation. Within an hour, everything breaks down. The forest terrain is impossible. Fallen trees block paths. Ravines appear without warning. Navigation by map becomes guesswork. Every sector looks identical. Endless rows of dark trees. Radio signals can't penetrate the forest canopy. Companies lose contact with battalions. Squads become separated from companies. By mid-morning, the regiment has advanced 400 yards in 2 hours. Then the artillery begins. German batteries fire airburst shells fused to explode in the tree canopy. The shells don't hit the ground. They detonate 80 feet up, showering steel and wooden splinters downward. Foxholes offer no protection. Men die from above. A medic tries to describe the wounds in his after-action report. Splinters driven through helmets into skulls, fragments entering bodies from shoulders down. Multiple penetrating wounds unlike anything in our training. November 7th, 1944, Wassenach. A small German village becomes the focal point of hell. The village sits on high ground overlooking the approaches to Schmidt. Whoever controls Wassenach controls the access routes. Company K of the 112th Regiment receives orders. Take Wassenach. They attack at dawn with 187 men. German defenders have turned every building into a bunker, every window into a firing port. The Americans assault across open ground. Take the village house by house, room by room. By noon, Wassenach is American. At 1400 hours, German counterattack retakes it, and 1700 hours, Americans counterattack and retake it again. The village changes hands 4 times in 36 hours. Each exchange costs lives. Buildings are destroyed by artillery, set ablaze by phosphorus grenades, collapsed by explosive charges. Germans firing from the church steeple target the American aid station. Medics wear Red Cross brassards that are supposed to provide protection under Geneva Convention. The Germans fire anyway. By November 9th, Company K holds Wassenach. Of 187 men who attacked, 57 remain combat effective. November 14th, Call Trail disaster. The trail is the only route through the forest connecting American positions at Wassenach to forward elements that have reached the village of Kammerscheid. It's barely a trail, narrow, muddy, winding through dense forest and steep ravines. 2nd Battalion, 112th Regiment, advances along the trail to reinforce Kammerscheid. They reach the village and establish defensive positions. Then German forces counterattack, cutting the call trail behind the American battalion. The battalion is surrounded. Supply convoys attempt to break through. The Germans are waiting. A column of 27 Sherman tanks advances down the trail. German anti-tank guns, positioned in concealed positions on the high ground, open fire at point-blank range. The trail is too narrow for tanks to maneuver. They can only go forward or back. The Germans destroy the lead tank, blocking the trail. Then they destroy the rear tank, trapping the column. Then they methodically destroy every tank in between. 27 Shermans burn on the call trail. The battalion in Kammerscheid is completely cut off. November 15th through 18th. The Pocket. 2nd Battalion, 112th Regiment, spends 4 days surrounded in Kammerscheid. No resupply, no reinforcement, no evacuation for wounded. They fight from the village buildings while German forces tighten. The noose. Artillery falls constantly. The Americans are outnumbered 5-1. On November 16th, Division orders the battalion to break out and withdraw. Some units make it, others become lost in the forest and are captured or killed. The Germans don't pursue aggressively, they let the forest do the killing. Men become separated from their units, wander in circles in identical-looking forest, die from exposure or German patrols. The battalion entered Kammerscheid with 812 men. 403 make it back to American lines. The others are dead, wounded and captured, or missing in the forest. The Call Trail disaster becomes legend in the division, a place name that veterans will never say without bitterness. November 18th. The division withdraws from the Hürtgen Forest. Orders come from 1st Army headquarters: cease attack, consolidate positions, prepare for relief. The 28th has fought in the forest for 16 days. Division casualties: total 6,184, 2,093 killed in action, 3,818 wounded, 273 missing. That's 44% of division strength, gone. Additionally, 738 men are evacuated for combat exhaustion, what soldiers call going crazy, what doctors call psychiatric casualties. Some men simply stop functioning. They stare at nothing. They don't respond to orders. They flinch at every sound. They weep uncontrollably. The division has a name for the Hürtgen Forest now. They call it the Green Hell. The name spreads to other units. The Hürtgen Forest becomes synonymous with pointless death, grinding attrition, a place where divisions go to die. The tree burst phenomenon changes how men think about protection. Traditional infantry doctrine teaches, when artillery lands, get in a foxhole. The foxhole is your fortress, your salvation. In the Hürtgen, foxholes become graves. German, artillery shells are fused to explode in the tree canopy. The blast wave travels downward. Shrapnel rains from above. The tree trunks themselves become weapons, splinters 2 feet long driven downward like javelins. A man in a foxhole is a target in a barrel, unable to see the shells coming, unable to move, just waiting for death from above. The division tries to adapt. Engineers teach men to dig L-shaped foxholes with overhead cover. But building overhead cover requires logs, which means cutting trees, which means noise that attracts German fire. The mathematics of survival become impossible. Every solution creates new vulnerabilities. The forest itself is the enemy. November 19th. Luxembourg. The division withdraws to Luxembourg for rest and refitting. Rest is a generous word for what happens. Men sleep 20 hours straight, unconscious from exhaustion. When they wake, many don't want to eat. They've lost too much weight too fast. The body needs time to remember how digestion works. Medical officers examine the division and file reports that alarm higher command. The average soldier has lost 18 pounds during 16 days in the Hürtgen. Many show signs of trench foot, feet rotting from constant exposure to cold and moisture. Frostbite is common despite November being relatively mild. Combat exhaustion cases require psychiatric evaluation. The division surgeon estimates that 20% of the division is psychologically unfit for immediate return to combat. But that's not an option. Replacements are arriving. The division must rebuild quickly. Another battle is coming. Nobody knows where yet. But the Hürtgen Forest proved the 28th can absorb horrific casualties and continue fighting. Command has learned the division's breaking point. Soon, they'll test it again. November 25th, Memorial Service. Division chaplains conduct services for the Hürtgen dead, but 40% of the divisions killed in action remain, unrecovered in the forest, which is still held by German forces. The bodies lie where they fell, in foxholes, on trails, in burned-out tanks, scattered across forest clearings. The chaplains hold symbolic services with empty boots placed in formation. Soldiers file past, saluting boots representing friends who died in the Green Hell. Some services have multiple pairs of boots from the same company. The visual impact is devastating. These aren't abstract casualty statistics. These are men who trained together for 30 months, who came from the same Pennsylvania towns, who promised each other they'd all make it home. Private Michael Torres writes in his diary, "We left 400 men in that forest, not bodies, men, still out there, still in the trees. I don't know if we won or lost. I don't know what we won. The question haunts the division. What did we accomplish? 16 days of fighting, 6,000 casualties. The division advanced approximately 3 miles. Simple. Arithmetic, 2,000 casualties per mile. And for what? The strategic objective was to reach the Roer River dams and prevent the Germans from flooding the river valley. The 28th never got close. The Germans still control the dams. The forest is still contested. The attack achieved nothing of strategic value. But that's not quite accurate either. The attack pinned down German forces. It prevented those forces from reinforcing other sectors. It consumed German ammunition, degraded German units, imposed costs on the enemy. This is the grim calculus of attritional warfare. Success isn't measured by territory taken, but by enemy capability destroyed. The 28th destroyed German capability. The Germans destroyed the 28th's capability. Both sides bled. The side that can replace losses faster wins. America can. Germany can't. That's the strategic logic. The soldiers in the cemetery don't care about strategic logic. They care that their friends died in a forest for shores. 3 miles of frozen ground that will be forgotten in history books, summarizing the advance toward Germany. November 20th, 1944. Luxembourg Rest Area. While graves registration teams still process casualties from the Hürtgen Forest, division officers convene for after-action reviews. These sessions are brutal, honest assessments of what went wrong. Nobody is spared. General Coda chairs the meetings. He demands specificity. What failed? Why? How do we fix it? Officers present findings. Radio communications failed in forest terrain. Standard formations were ineffective. Map intelligence was dangerously inaccurate. Artillery coordination broke down. Tank infantry cooperation proved impossible in dense woods. Casualty evacuation took 6 to 12 hours versus the 30 minutes in open terrain. The list of failures is long. Heated arguments break out. Some officers defend decisions, others condemn them. At one point, a battalion commander accuses division staff of sending men to die in an unwinnable battle. Coda doesn't reprimand him. Instead, Coda's voice breaks as he responds. "You're right. Now, help me make sure we don't do it again." The room goes silent. November 25th. Sergeants develop new tactics. While officers write formal reports, non-commissioned officers work on practical solutions. Sergeant Thomas Davies from Company B, 110th Regiment, gathers squad leaders and proposes something called buddy creep. Instead of advancing in squad formations, men pair up. 2-man teams advance using hand signals instead of verbal commands or radio. One man moves while the other covers. They leapfrog forward, maintaining visual contact, communicating through simple gestures. The tactic reduces noise, maintains coordination, and spreads the formation to minimize casualties from tree bursts. Other sergeants contribute refinements. The division tests buddy creep in training exercises. Casualties in simulated combat drop by 40%. The tactic works, but it comes too late for the 6,000 men who died in the Hürtgen learning lessons, the hard way. December 1st. The Forest Fighting Manual is published. Division staff compiles all lessons learned into a 24-page illustrated manual. It's blunt, technical, and stained with the blood of men who discovered these lessons through death. The manual covers modified foxhole designs with overhead cover and angled walls to deflect tree bursts. Sound-based enemy detection, since visual contact is often impossible. Small unit tactics emphasizing 2-man teams and squad independence. Modified radio procedures for terrain that blocks signals. Casualty evacuation techniques through dense forest. Psychological preparation for fighting in darkness and isolation. The introduction contains one devastating sentence. This cost us 6,000 men to learn. Division headquarters prints 14,000 copies and distributes them to all incoming divisions in the European theater. British Army requests 3,000 copies. The manual becomes required reading at infantry schools. The 28th Division's suffering becomes institutional knowledge. December 5th. Memorial service becomes a reckoning. Chaplains hold another service for the Hürtgen dead. By now, more bodies have been recovered, but 40% of the divisions killed in action remain in German-controlled forest. The chaplains conduct symbolic services. Boots arranged in formation, empty helmets, rifles stuck bayonet first into the ground with dog tags hanging from the stocks. Soldiers file past, each man saluting fallen comrades. Some men break down crying. Others maintain rigid military bearing, faces carved from stone, emotions suppressed because if they start crying, they'll never stop. One soldier kneels before a pair of boots, representing his brother, killed on November 7th near Wassenack. He stays kneeling for 20 minutes. Chaplain Michael O'Connor approaches, offers comfort. The soldier looks up and asks, "What did we win?" The chaplain has no answer. December 10th, 1944. Replacements arrive. 5,400 men report to the division. Fresh from the United States, minimally trained, average age 19.2 years. They're replacing men who averaged 26.3 years and trained for 30 months. The new soldiers get 4 to 7 days orientation before being assigned to combat companies. Veterans look at them with complicated emotions. Relief, more bodies mean the division can function. Resentment, these kids didn't earn the keystone patch through the Hürtgen grinder. Pity, they have no idea what's coming. Guilt, veterans survived while friends died, and now they have to train replacements to die in the next battle. The relationship between veteran and replacement becomes the defining social dynamic of the rebuilt division. Those who were there and those who came after. Those who know and those about to learn. The tactical innovations save lives immediately. When the division returns to combat in December, commanders implement the lessons from the Hürtgen. Small unit tactics replace formal formations. Sergeants get increased autonomy to make tactical decisions without waiting for officer approval. Two-man buddy teams become standard. Modified foxholes with overhead cover become mandatory. Sound discipline improves. Radio procedures adapt to forest terrain. The innovations work. Casualty rates drop significantly in subsequent forest operations. But the improvements raise an agonizing question. If we'd known these tactics in early November, how many men would have lived? There's no answer, only the knowledge that 6,000 casualties bought tactical improvements that will save thousands more. The mathematics of war again. The living benefit from lessons written in the blood of the dead. December 12th. Awards ceremony. Division headquarters. Presents medals earned during the Hürtgen fighting. 127 silver stars. 412 bronze stars. 2 distinguished service crosses. Most are awarded posthumously. Family members aren't present. They're in Pennsylvania, still processing casualty notifications. Officers accept medals on behalf of dead soldiers. The ceremony is brief, quiet, dignified. General Kota personally pins medals on uniforms that will be shipped home to families. He speaks to each recipient by name, even though the recipient is dead, and represented only by uniform and paperwork. After the ceremony, a staff officer asks Kota why he insisted on the formality. Kota responds, "Those men earned these medals in the worst conditions imaginable. The least we can do is honor them properly." The medals go into boxes for shipment to Pennsylvania towns, where families wait for sons who will never come home. The psychological casualties concern division medical staff more than physical wounds. 738 men evacuated for combat exhaustion during the Hürtgen. Many more remain with the division showing symptoms but refusing evacuation. Nightmares, hypervigilance, emotional numbness, uncontrollable shaking, inability to eat. Division psychiatrists are overwhelmed. The term combat exhaustion is deliberately vague, avoiding the stigma of shell shock from the First World War or cowardice, which some officers still whisper about. But the phenomenon is real and growing. Men who function perfectly during training break down after days in the green hell. Psychiatrists write reports warning that prolonged combat in the Hürtgen's conditions exceeds human psychological endurance. Some men can take it for days, others for weeks. Eventually, everyone breaks. It's not weakness, it's biology. The human nervous system can only sustain maximum alertness for so long before it fails. December 14th, division declared combat ready again, 6 weeks after. Withdrawing from the Hürtgen Forest with 44% casualties, the 28th Division is officially rated fit for combat operations. The rating is technically accurate. Replacements have brought the division to 80% authorized strength. Equipment has been replaced. Training has integrated new men into veteran units. But the division is fundamentally changed. 38% of current personnel weren't in the division during the Hürtgen. They didn't pay that price. They didn't learn those lessons firsthand. The division carries 2 identities now. the men who survived the Green Hell and know what industrial-scale death looks like, and the replacements who are about to learn. These identities will merge in the next battle. Not in the forest this time, in the snow-covered hills of Belgium, where the Wehrmacht will launch its last major offensive, where the Bloody Bucket will face its ultimate test, where the lessons of the Hürtgen, written in blood, bought with 6,000 casualties, will mean the difference between desperate survival and complete destruction. The final lesson from the Hürtgen is the cruelest. Wars aren't won by tactical brilliance or individual heroism. They're won by nations that can absorb horrific casualties and continue fighting. The 28th lost 44% of its strength in 16 days and was combat ready again in 6 weeks. That's America's strategic advantage, not superior soldiers or better tactics, but industrial capacity to replace losses faster than the enemy. Germany can't replace its casualties. Every German division the Wehrmacht loses is gone forever. Every American division can be rebuilt, re-equipped, and sent back into battle. The Hürtgen Forest proved this. The division was destroyed and reborn. The men who died there bought 6 weeks for the division to rebuild before the next battle. Their sacrifice wasn't tactical, it was strategic. They died to prove that America could take the worst the Wehrmacht could inflict and come back for more. That knowledge provides no comfort to the families receiving folded flags. But it's the truth. The Bloody Bucket earned its name in the Green Hell. Soon it will earn it again in Belgium, where German panzers will smash through American lines in the largest offensive on the Western Front since 1940. The division doesn't know that yet. They're resting in Luxembourg, mourning their dead, training their replacements, and trying to forget the sound of shells exploding in tree canopy 80 feet overhead. Trying and failing. Because nobody who survived the Green Hell ever forgets. December 11th, 1944. The Ardennes region, Belgium-Luxembourg border. The 28th Division arrives in what 1st Army Headquarters describes as a rest sector. After the Hürtgen nightmare, the designation feels like divine intervention. The outgoing 2nd Infantry Division confirms this is the quietest sector on the Western Front. Occasional patrol activity, light artillery exchanges, no major German attacks in months. Perfect place for a mauled division to recover while still maintaining frontline positions. General Cotta tours the sector, rolling hills covered in light snow, dense forest alternating with small villages, German positions visible across the Our River in some locations. Everything seems peaceful, almost too peaceful. Cotta asks the 2nd Division commander about German strength opposite their lines. The answer is vague. Minimal presence, probably third-rate units holding the line while their good divisions fight elsewhere. Cotta accepts this assessment. He has no reason not to. Every intelligence report confirms it. The Ardennes is a quiet sector. December 13th. Division deploys across an impossible frontage. The 28th takes responsibility for 25 miles of front line. 25 miles. Standard doctrine states a division should hold 8 to 10 miles maximum. The 28th is being asked to defend triple that distance. The mathematics are brutal. With 3 regiments, the division must assign roughly 8 miles per regiment. Each regiment has 3 battalions. Each battalion gets approximately 3 miles. Each battalion has 4 companies. Each company gets 3/4 of a mile. Platoons are responsible for sectors that should be held by companies. Squads are responsible for sectors that should be held by platoons. Individual soldiers can't even see the next position in the line. The deployment violates every principle of defensive warfare, but those are the orders. Hold 25 miles with 14,000 men. General Cotta files official protests up the chain of command. The response from 1st Army: maintain current dispositions, no reinforcements available. December 15th, morning, the intelligence officers report. Captain James Miller, Division G2 intelligence officer, reviews reports from the previous 48 hours and realizes something is wrong. German radio traffic has increased 300%. Pattern analysis shows new units moving into positions opposite the 28th sector. Prisoner interrogations from recent patrols mention strange movements. Armor being heard at night, troops moving forward. Air reconnaissance photos show Germans stockpiling bridging equipment near the Our River. Miller compiles everything into a formal intelligence assessment. Enemy activity indicates possible preparation for offensive operations. He files the report with division headquarters. Division forwards it to 1st Army headquarters. The report is marked routine and filed. 1st Army intelligence dismisses the indicators as defensive preparations or local repositioning. Nobody believes the Germans are capable of mounting a major offensive. Not after months of retreat, not with Allied armies closing on the German border, not in winter. December 15th, evening. Life in a quiet sector. The division settles into routine. In Wiltz, Luxembourg, the division reserve enjoys relative comfort, hot food, dry billets, evening entertainment. The United Service Organization schedules Bob Hope to perform on December 17th. Soldiers are excited. Most have never seen a live USO show. In the frontline villages, conditions are less comfortable, but still manageable. Patrols go out nightly. Artillery exchanges happen sporadically. Soldiers rotate through warming stations. The cold is miserable, but nothing compared to the Hürtgen Forest. Private James Becker writes a letter home. Finally caught a break. Quiet sector. Good billets. Might actually survive this war. He seals the letter and gives it to the mail clerk for the next pickup. The letter will never be mailed. In 12 hours, the entire sector will explode in the largest artillery barrage fired on the Western Front since 1918. The German forces hidden opposite the 28th are not third-rate units. 5th Panzer Army under General Hasso von Manteuffel commands 3 full panzer divisions and 4 Volksgrenadier divisions, approximately 75,000 men, 500 tanks, and 1,600 artillery pieces. These aren't rear-echelon garrison troops. They're veteran formations pulled from other sectors, re-equipped with new weapons, trained for offensive operations. Among them, 2nd Panzer Division, Panzer Lehr Division, 26th Volksgrenadier Division, units with years of combat experience. The 5th Panzer Army has been assembling in secret for weeks. German soldiers move only at night. Vehicles are camouflaged. Radio silence is strictly enforced. Artillery positions are concealed in forests. The Germans have achieved complete strategic surprise. Allied intelligence has failed catastrophically. The quiet sector is about to become the most violent sector on the Western Front. December 15th, late evening. Final preparations. In German positions across the Our River, artillery crews ready their guns. Panzer commanders brief their crews. Infantry officers review attack routes. The offensive is scheduled to begin at 0530 hours, December 16th. The objective is audacious. Smash through American lines, race west to the Meuse River, capture Antwerp, split the Allied armies in half, force a negotiated peace. It's desperate. It's Germany's last major offensive capability. Everything depends on speed and surprise. The German planners selected the Ardennes specifically because it's lightly defended. They selected the 28th Division sector specifically because intelligence shows the division is spread impossibly thin and still recovering from the Hürtgen Forest. The German plan assumes the 28th will collapse under the initial assault, creating a gap through which panzers can pour west. The plan is reasonable based on available intelligence, but the plan doesn't account for one factor: Pennsylvania stubbornness. The strategic importance of the Ardennes sector isn't obvious. To casual observers, these snow-covered Belgian hills seem insignificant. No major cities, no critical resources, just farms, forests, and small villages. But the Ardennes sits at the hinge of the Allied front. To the north, British and American forces push toward the Ruhr industrial region. To the south, American forces advance toward the Sayre. The Ardennes connects these efforts. It's lightly defended precisely because Allied commanders assume the Germans won't attack here. The terrain is too difficult, the roads too limited, the strategic objectives too distant. But difficult terrain cuts both ways. Yes, it's hard for Germans to attack through. It's also hard for Americans to reinforce through. If the Germans can achieve breakthrough in the Ardennes, they can exploit before Allied reserves arrive. The German plan is brilliant in conception. It just requires the 28th Division to collapse on schedule. December 16th, 0529 hours. 1 minute to go. Along 25 miles of front, American soldiers hunker in frozen foxholes. Some are awake on watch. Others sleep as well as cold allows. A few write letters by flashlight. Most think about nothing in particular. Breakfast, mail call, whether the Bob Hope show will actually happen. In German positions, artillery officers watch clocks tick toward 0530. Gun crews stand ready. Infantry, huddled in forward positions, prepare to attack. Tank engines idle quietly. The largest German offensive since 1940 is 1 minute from beginning. The American soldiers in the 28th Division have no idea. Their intelligence officers filed warnings that were dismissed. Their commanders protested the impossible frontage and were overruled. They did everything right and weren't believed. Now they're about to pay the price for Allied overconfidence. 5:30 hours, December 16th, 1944. 1,600 German artillery pieces fire simultaneously. The sound is beyond description. Not thunder, not explosions, but something fundamental and world-ending. The concussion knocks men down. The flash turns night into day. Shells impact across the entire division sector. In bunkers, communication centers, command posts, artillery positions, supply dumps, road junctions. The Germans aren't conducting harassing fire. They're systematically destroying the 28th Division's ability to fight. Phone lines are severed within minutes. Radio antennas are destroyed. Command posts collapse under direct hits. Supply dumps explode. For 90 minutes, the shelling continues without pause. American soldiers can't move, can't call for help, can't do anything except press themselves into frozen earth and pray. Some pray to God. Others pray for the shelling to stop. Private Michael Torres, crouched in a foxhole near Marnock, realizes he's screaming but can't hear himself over the artillery. He stops screaming, not because the fear abates, but because his throat is raw and bleeding. 700 hours. The artillery stops. The silence is worse than the noise. For 90 minutes, sound has been constant, overwhelming. Now it ceases. In the ringing silence, American soldiers emerge from foxholes, dazed, bleeding from ears, coated in dirt and snow. They try to call for orders. Radios are dead or jammed with panicked partial messages. Phone lines are cut. Some units remain in contact with their command structure. Others are completely isolated. And then, through the morning mist and snow, American soldiers see shapes moving toward them. German infantry advancing in extended lines. Behind the infantry, tanks, dozens of tanks. The 28th Division, still reeling from the artillery barrage, spread impossibly thin across 25 miles, isolated from command and support, has approximately 30 seconds to decide, fight or run. Most choose to fight. Not because they're heroes, not because they expect to win, but because there's nowhere to run to, and Pennsylvania boys don't quit. The Battle of the Bulge has begun. The Bloody Bucket is about to earn its name one more time. December 16th, 1944. 0700 hours. Marnock, Luxembourg. Company B, 110th Regiment, occupies defensive positions in and around this small village. The artillery barrage has left buildings collapsed, phone lines severed, 3 men dead from direct hits. First Sergeant William Davies counts his remaining effectives, 114 men combat capable. Then he sees them, German panzers emerging from the morning mist, not one or two. A column of tanks supported by infantry. He estimates a full battalion attack against a single company. His radio is dead, phone lines cut. He has no communication with battalion headquarters 3 miles away. He has no idea if other positions are being attacked. He makes the only decision possible: defend until overrun or ordered to withdraw. His men take positions in buildings, cellars, windows. They have M1 rifles, a few bazookas, one 57mm anti-tank gun. Against Panzer frontal armor, these weapons are almost useless. But Davies orders, make them pay for every yard. 0730 hours. Marnock comes under direct assault. German panzers fire point-blank into buildings. Walls explode, roofs collapse. American anti-tank guns fire back. The 57mm shells bounce off Panther frontal armor like thrown rocks. One bazooka team gets close enough for a flank shot. The rocket penetrates a Panzer IV. The tank explodes. German infantry swarm the bazooka position. Both Americans die in close combat. The fighting descends into building-to-building chaos. Germans fire into cellars. Americans throw grenades from upper floors. Wounded men from both sides scream in German and English. Company B's radio operator gets the radio, working for 30 seconds, and transmits Marnock under heavy attack. Estimate battalion strength. Need immediate. The transmission cuts off. At battalion headquarters, the radio operator tries to re-establish contact. Nothing, just static. The last message from Marnock ends mid-sentence. Nobody knows if Company B is fighting or dead. 0800 to 1100 hours. The division disintegrates. Reports flood into division headquarters at Wiltz. Confused, contradictory, fragmentary. Tanks at Marnock, infiltrators at Hosangen. Lost contact with 1st Battalion. Germans crossing the Our River at multiple points. Request immediate artillery support. Cannot reach regimental headquarters. General Cotta spreads a map across his command table and tries to understand what's happening. Every position is reporting attacks. That shouldn't be possible. Intelligence said minimal German presence, but the reports are consistent. Heavy attacks across the entire 25-mile front. Cotta realizes with sickening clarity, the Ardennes isn't a quiet sector. It's the focal point of a massive German offensive. His division, spread across impossible frontage, still recovering from the Hürtgen, minimally supported, is directly in the path of Germany's main effort. Cotta issues orders. All units hold current positions, reinforcements en route. He knows the orders are fantasy. There are no reinforcements. 1100 hours. Hosingen, Luxembourg. Company K, 110th Regiment, has been fighting for 3.5 hours. They're surrounded by the entire German 26th Volksgrenadier Division. The disparity is absurd. 187 American soldiers versus roughly 15,000 Germans. The Germans have tanks, artillery, unlimited ammunition. The Americans have what they carried into battle. German officers approach under white flag, demand surrender. The American company commander, Captain Paul Gunther, refuses. The German officer seems genuinely confused. "You are surrounded. You cannot win. Why continue?" Gunther responds, "Because those are my orders." The German officer withdraws. The attack resumes. Company K fights from the village buildings, using every tactic learned in the Hürtgen Forest. Two-man teams, coordinated fire, slow withdrawal from position to position. They make the Germans pay for every building. Hours pass. Ammunition runs low. The aid station overflows with wounded. There's no morphine left. Medics use whiskey from a destroyed bar to dull the pain. 1400 hours. Clairvaux. German panzers reach the town where Division Forward Command Post is located. Staff officers burn codebooks, destroy radios, grab rifles, and become infantry. General Cotta realizes the command post is being overrun. He orders, "Everyone out. Withdrawal south to Wiltz." Officers and enlisted men pile into jeeps, trucks, anything that moves. They flee south minutes before German tanks enter the town square. During the escape, Cotta's jeep passes American positions still fighting. Isolated squads holding crossroads, machine gun teams covering withdrawals, tank destroyers in hull-down positions engaging panzers at suicidal range. Cotta realizes his division isn't retreating, it's fragmenting. Units are cut off, surrounded, fighting independently without communication or coordination. The 28th Division, as a cohesive military formation, has ceased to exist. What remains is hundreds of small units scattered across 25 miles, each fighting its own desperate battle. 1600 hours. The strategic picture emerges. First Army headquarters finally grasps the scope of the German offensive. This isn't a local counterattack. It's a full-scale offensive involving multiple German armies, 20 divisions, hundreds of tanks. The weight of the attack is falling on the Ardennes, specifically on the 28th Division's sector. First Army issues new orders to the 28th. Delay enemy advance. Impose maximum casualties. Withdraw as necessary, but continue resistance. The orders essentially say, "We can't help you. Buy us time." Every hour the 28th delays the German advance is an hour for Allied reserves to deploy. Every road junction held is a road junction the Germans can't use. Every bridge blown is a bridge German engineers must rebuild. The division's mission has changed from hold the line to die slowly. 1800 hours. Marnock falls. After 11 hours of continuous fighting, Company B, 110th Regiment, is overrun. Of 114 men who fought through the day, 19 remain combat capable. They're out of ammunition, out of options. Germans storm the last building. Private Daniel Torres fires his last rifle rounds, then draws his pistol, fires until it's empty, then raises his hands in surrender. German soldiers are shocked by the destruction. Their battalion attacked a single American company and suffered 300 casualties, taking a village of 30 buildings. A German officer questions Torres, "How many men defended here?" Torres responds, 114 at start of day. The German officer doesn't believe him. No company of 100 men could inflict such casualties. But it's true. 11 hours, 114 men, 300 German casualties. The exchange rate isn't sustainable. Company B is destroyed. But the delay matters, 2100 hours. Division headquarters at Wiltz, General Cotta receives fragmentary reports. Marnock fallen. Hosingen still fighting. Konsthum surrounded. Holzthum under attack. Most of 110th Regiment is cut off or destroyed. 109th Regiment situation unclear, lost communication. 112th Regiment under heavy pressure, still holding. Casualties are catastrophic, but impossible to count precisely. Communication with most units is lost. Cote estimates 40 to 60% division casualties in the first 16 hours. The estimate will prove conservative. He makes a decision, withdraw headquarters to Seibrit, 12 miles south. Wiltz will fall. Staying serves no purpose except adding more casualties. Before leaving, Cotta records a message for First Army. Division situation critical, unable to maintain cohesion. Units fighting as isolated positions. Require immediate reinforcement or division will be destroyed. The message is transmitted. No reinforcement is coming, not today, maybe not tomorrow. The 28th Division is on its own. 2300 hours. Summary of the first 16 hours. The 28th Infantry Division has effectively ceased to exist as an organized combat force. Communications are severed with 60% of companies. 80% of frontline positions are either overrun or surrounded. Estimated casualties, 2,000 to 2,500 killed, wounded, or missing. 14 to 18% of division strength. 110th Regiment has been virtually destroyed as a fighting force. But the German 5th Panzer Army, which expected to punch through American lines and race west unimpeded, is 12 miles short of its first-day objectives. Roads are clogged with burning vehicles. Bridge sites are under American artillery fire. Every village requires house-to-house fighting. The delay is costing Germany its offensive timeline. German commanders radios Berlin with updates. Resistance heavier than expected. Schedule delayed. The true cost of the first 16 hours won't be known for weeks. When casualty reports are finally compiled in January, the numbers will be worse than Cotta's estimates. Much worse. But on December 16th, in the darkness after midnight, what matters is that hundreds of small American units are still fighting. Company K still holds Hosingen. Isolated platoons control crossroads. Tank destroyer crews ambush German columns. The 28th Division is broken, but it's not beaten. Pennsylvania's stubbornness manifests in dozens of surrounded positions, where American soldiers refuse surrender, refuse retreat, refuse to give the Germans anything except death and delay. In those dark December hours, American soldiers who expected to watch Bob Hope perform instead crouch in frozen ruins, low on ammunition, cut off from support, and choose to keep fighting. Not for glory, not for medals, but because holding for one more hour means the Germans are 1 hour farther from victory, because somewhere behind the lines, other Americans are preparing to counterattack, because going down fighting beats surrender. The bloody bucket is bleeding again. But it's not done, not yet, not while one Pennsylvania boy has ammunition and breath. The 16 hours of December 16th are just the beginning. December 17th, 1944, 0600 hours. Hosingen, Luxembourg. Dawn breaks over a village that should be German-controlled, but isn't. Company K, 110th Regiment, has now been surrounded for 24 hours. The village is a stone and mortar fortress built on a hillside. Medieval construction never intended for modern warfare, but thick walls stop rifle bullets and provide some protection from artillery. 187 men started yesterday's fight. This morning, Captain Paul Gunther counts 109 still combat capable. The basement aid station holds 47 wounded. No morphine remains. The company medic, Private Thomas Mitchell, uses whiskey liberated from a destroyed tavern to dull the pain. Some wounded men refuse, they want to stay alert, want to keep fighting. Mitchell respects that. He saves the whiskey for the ones screaming. German loudspeakers crackle to life at 0800 hours. A voice speaks in accented English. American soldiers, you are completely surrounded. Further resistance is pointless. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to Geneva Convention. Continue fighting, and you will be destroyed. Captain Gunther listens to the entire message. Then he orders every man who can still fire a weapon to shoot toward the loudspeaker position. 50 rifles fire simultaneously. The loudspeaker goes silent. A German machine gun opens fire in response. Stone chips fly from the building walls. After the exchange ends, Gunther's radio operator manages brief contact with battalion headquarters, now 12 miles south, out of the encirclement. The battalion commander asks for situation report. Gunther transmits, still holding, low ammunition, many wounded, require resupply or evacuation. The response crushes whatever hope remained. No resupply possible, no evacuation possible. Hold as long as feasible, then withdraw at discretion. Translation, you're on your own. December 18th, Consthum, Luxembourg. 2 companies from the 110th Regiment, Company D and Company F, hold this village 3 miles from Hosingen. They're also surrounded. Unlike Hosingen, Consthum sits on flat terrain. No natural defensive advantages. German armor can maneuver freely. The Americans dig in, emplacing mines on approach roads, positioning their few remaining anti-tank weapons for ambush. At noon, German panzers attack. Americans let the lead tanks pass, then engage the rear of the column. 2 German tanks explode. The column halts. Infantry deploy and assault the village. The Americans expected this. It's basic German doctrine. They've prepared interlocking machine gun positions. German infantry advance into pre-planned kill zones. The attack falters. Germans withdraw and shell the village for 2 hours. Then they attack again, and again. By nightfall, the Germans have attacked Consthum 4 times and been repulsed 4 times, but the Americans are running out of ammunition. The German offensive is experiencing something commanders didn't anticipate: delay. 5th Panzer Army planned to reach the Meuse River by December 17th. It's now December 18th, and they haven't even cleared the initial American positions. Every bypassed village requires a regiment to contain it. Consthum ties down 2,000 Germans. Hosingen ties down another 2,000. Smaller positions, crossroads, bridges, hilltops, require platoons or companies to neutralize. The Germans are discovering that bypassing American positions doesn't work. The bypassed Americans attack German supply columns, call artillery on German assembly areas, block roads. 1 isolated American platoon holds a bridge for 36 hours, firing on every German vehicle that approaches, withdrawing when nearly overrun, then reoccupying the position after the Germans pass. The Germans must clear every position. It takes time the offensive schedule doesn't have. December 19th, 1400 hours. Hosingen. Company K has fought for 72 hours without resupply. Ammunition is critical. Each rifleman has fewer than 20 rounds. Machine gunners ration bursts to 5-second maximum. The company has no anti-tank weapons remaining. The last bazooka ran out of rockets yesterday. Wounded fill 3 buildings. 19 men of the original 187 are dead, confirmed. Another 34 are too wounded to fight. That leaves 134 effectives, but effective is generous. Most are wounded to some degree, exhausted, subsisting on German rations captured during counterattacks. Captain Gunther makes a decision. He gathers his officers and senior NCOs. We're out of options. Ammunition is gone. We can try to break out tonight, or we can fight until they overrun us. Vote. The vote is unanimous. Fight, not from heroism, from calculation. Every hour they hold is an hour the Germans waste. Their deaths might buy time for other Americans to prepare defenses. December 20th, Hosingen falls. At 0900 hours, German infantry supported by tanks storm the village from 3 directions simultaneously. Company K fights until individual positions run out of ammunition, then fights hand-to-hand, then surrenders when physically overwhelmed. Captain Gunther surrenders his command at 10:30 hours. 19 men walk out of Hürtgen as prisoners. 168 are casualties, killed, wounded, missing. The German regimental commander meets Gunther during the surrender. Through an interpreter, the German says, "My regiment attacked your company for 4 days. You cost me 300 dead, 700 wounded. You are either very brave or very stupid." Gunther, exhausted and bitter, responds, "We're from Pennsylvania. We don't quit." The German commander has no response to that. He orders his men to treat the American wounded with respect. The pattern repeats across the 28th Division's former sector. Holzthum holds from December 16th to December 18th, 2 days against overwhelming odds. Weiler holds for 1 day, inflicting severe casualties before being overrun. Consthum holds until December 19th, 3 days. In each case, isolated American garrisons fight far beyond reasonable expectation. German commanders report increasing frustration to higher headquarters. American resistance exceeds intelligence estimates. Minor positions defended with fanaticism. Schedule continues to slip. 5th Panzer Army is now 4 days behind its offensive timetable. 4 days might not sound like much, but 4 days is time for American reinforcements to deploy. 4 days is time for weather to clear, allowing air support. 4 days is time for Eisenhower to shift strategic reserves. The isolated stands of 28th Division companies are buying time measured in American lives, traded for German schedule delays. December 20th, Wiltz falls. The town serving as division reserve position is surrounded. Parts of the 110th Regiment, division headquarters elements, and various support units, approximately 1,893 men, have been fighting to hold Wiltz for 4 days. General Cote ordered them to withdraw south days ago. Some units obeyed. Others chose to stay and fight, believing they could hold. They were wrong. By December 20th, German forces have completely encircled Wiltz. At 1600 hours, the senior American commander in Wiltz orders, "All units withdraw by individual groups. Move south. Evade capture if possible." What follows is chaos. Some units break out successfully. Others are captured or killed attempting escape. The fighting for Wiltz cost the Germans 4 days and approximately 1,000 casualties. The cost to the Americans? 1,247 casualties, 66% of the defenders. German civilians hiding in cellars witnessed the American resistance. Luxembourg is not Germany. These are civilians whose country has been occupied since 1940. They hate the Germans and support the Americans. As the fighting rages above them, they hide and watch. After the battles end, some risk their lives to bury American dead, mark grave locations, hide wounded Americans from German patrols. One Luxembourg diary entry from December 21st. "The Americans knew they would die. They fought anyway. They shared their last food with our children. When Germans gave them chances to surrender, they refused. I do not understand this courage. I am grateful for it." These civilian testimonies will become crucial after the war, when historians try to reconstruct what happened in the isolated battles that official records couldn't document because the units were too busy fighting to file reports. December 21st, discovery. As the 28th Division's remaining elements withdraw south and regroup, American patrols advancing north begin finding evidence of the isolated stands. They find destroyed German vehicles clustered around small villages. They find ammunition casings by the thousands, evidence of sustained firefights. They find bodies. American bodies in fighting positions, often with empty magazines nearby, sometimes with fixed bayonets suggesting the fighting reached hand to hand. They find German bodies too, in greater numbers than the American casualties would suggest. The exchange rates are staggering. At Marnach, 114 Americans inflicted 300 German casualties. At Hürtgen, 187 Americans inflicted 1,000 German casualties. At Consthum, 312 Americans inflicted 900 German casualties. These aren't normal combat ratios. These are last stands. Desperate defenses by men who knew they were going to die and made the Germans pay maximum price. The strategic impact won't be calculated for months. Military historians will analyze the Battle of the Bulge and identify the 28th Division's sacrifice as critical to the Allied victory. The division didn't stop the German offensive. They were too few, too spread out. But they delayed it. Every village fought over was hours or days the Germans couldn't advance. Every road blocked was a detour German armor had to navigate. Every casualty inflicted was a German soldier who couldn't reach the Meuse River. The 5th Panzer Army entered the battle expecting to achieve breakthrough on December 16th and reach strategic objectives by December 21st. On December 21st, they're still fighting in the same area where they started, having advanced only 12 miles in 6 days, 20% of the required distance. Behind them, American reinforcements are deploying: airborne divisions, armored divisions, artillery battalions. The Bulge will be contained. The German offensive will fail. And when historians ask why, part of the answer will be because Pennsylvania boys in isolated villages refused to surrender. Because the Bloody Bucket bled the Wehrmacht white before the real counterattack even began. December 28th, 1944. Division Personnel Section, Sibret, Belgium. Captain Robert Miller sits at a desk covered in incomplete rosters, casualty reports, and telegram forms. His job is impossible: account for every man in the 28th Division. Determine who's alive, who's dead, who's missing, who's captured. The problem is that entire companies disappeared during the first days of the Bulge. Communications were severed. Units were overrun. Men are scattered across 50 miles of Belgian countryside, some still fighting, some hiding in barns, some marching toward German prisoner-of-war camps, some dead in frozen foxholes not yet discovered. Miller tries to compile numbers. Initial estimate, 5,000 casualties, possibly more. The actual number is unknown, might stay unknown for weeks. He begins drafting form letters to families. The Secretary of War desires me to express his deep regret that your son is missing in whole. Action. Missing, not dead, not captured, missing, because nobody knows. January 5th, 1945. Bedford, Pennsylvania. Population 3,200. A town small enough that everyone knows everyone. The Western Union office opens at 0800 hours. By 0900 hours, the operator has delivered 17 telegrams. All casualty notifications. All 28th Division. Bedford has just lost 17 men in a single battle most Americans have never heard of. By noon, the town suspends school. Businesses close. People gather at Trinity United Methodist Church, not for a scheduled service, but because nobody knows where else to go. Families who receive telegrams sit in pews, crying or silent. Families who haven't received telegrams yet sit terrified, waiting. One telegram arrives at a house that already displays a Gold Star banner from a son killed in the Pacific. Now a second son is missing in Belgium. The mother opens the telegram, reads it, carefully folds it, places it on the kitchen table, and walks upstairs. She doesn't come down for 3 days. The hometown composition that created such powerful unit cohesion now creates concentrated grief. In Altoona, Pennsylvania, 47 casualties. Reading, 38 casualties. Harrisburg, 31. Scranton, 29. These aren't just statistics, they're neighborhoods. On Cedar Avenue in Scranton, 5 families on the same block receive casualty telegrams on the same day. The families gather at Kowalski's Tavern, the same tavern where many of these soldiers drank before enlisting. They sit together in silence, unable to process the magnitude of loss. Someone suggests calling the War Department for more information. They call. The War Department has no additional information. Missing means missing. Could be prisoner, could be wounded and unidentified, could be dead and unrecovered. The families wait. Some will wait months, some will wait years. Some will never get answers. January 12, 1945. Hosingen, Luxembourg. Graves registration teams reach the village now that German forces have withdrawn. They find evidence of extraordinary combat. Buildings are destroyed. Spent ammunition casings cover the ground, thousands of them. American bodies are found in fighting positions, frozen in the poses they died in. One soldier is found crouched behind a wall, rifle aimed, frozen mid-aim. Another is found in a basement, surrounded by empty M1 clips, apparently having fired until his ammunition was exhausted. The Graves registration team counts 89 American bodies in and around Hosingen. Most carry personal effects, letters, photographs, dog tags. One soldier's last letter, dated December 15th and never mailed, says, "Tell Mom this was worth it." The letter will be forwarded to his mother in Philadelphia. She will keep it for the rest of her life, unable to decide if she's proud or devastated. Luxembourg Civilians Guide. American Soldiers to Hidden Graves. During the German occupation of reconquered territory, Luxembourg villagers buried American dead when they could, marking locations with makeshift crosses or mental notes of landmarks. Now, as Americans return, the villagers lead graves registration teams to these sites. An elderly woman in Consthum brings Americans to a barn where she hid 3 wounded soldiers during the battle. All 3 died of wounds. She buried them behind the barn, marked the location with stones. She apologizes through a translator. She's sorry she couldn't save them. Sorry she could only give them burial. The American Graves Registration Officer tells her she did more than most could. The 3 soldiers are disinterred, identified, and given proper burial with full honors. The Luxembourg woman attends the ceremony, weeping. February 1st, 1945. Final casualty count released. Division personnel has spent 6 weeks compiling reports, cross-referencing lists, interviewing survivors, investigating missing persons. The numbers are worse than initial estimates. 110th Regiment, 2,750 casualties out of 3,127 men, 88%. The regiment effectively ceased to exist as a military unit. 109th Regiment, 1,544 casualties, 47%. 112th Regiment, 2,190 casualties, 56%. Division total, 8,133 casualties out of 14,037 men, 58%. It's the second highest division percentage loss in the European theater. Only the 106th Infantry Division, completely surrounded at Schnee-Eifel, suffered higher percentage casualties. The 28th fought for 5 days and lost nearly 60% of its strength. The missing in action numbers haunt families for years. 2008. 192 men initially listed as MIA. Many are later confirmed killed in action when bodies are recovered. Some are found in German prisoner of war camps when camps are liberated in spring 1945. But 417 are never recovered, never confirmed dead, never confirmed captured, just missing, gone. Their families receive letters from the War Department. Despite exhaustive search, no information has been obtained concerning your son's whereabouts. If further information is received, you will be notified immediately. Further information rarely comes. These families exist in limbo for years, unable to mourn, unable to move forward, trapped in permanent uncertainty. Some families hold memorial services without bodies. Others refuse, insisting their sons might still be alive somewhere. Pennsylvania newspapers struggle to convey the magnitude. The Philadelphia Inquirer runs a front-page story on January 6th. Keystone Division shattered in Bulge. The article includes a partial casualty list, 3 pages of names in small print. Philadelphia alone lost 63 men. The Harrisburg Patriot News publishes photographs of local casualties. 2 full pages of young men's faces staring out from high school yearbooks or enlistment photos. Many photos show brothers standing together in uniform, both now dead. Pennsylvania Governor Edward Martin declares a day of mourning. Flags fly at half-staff across the state. Church services are packed with families seeking comfort or answers or just somewhere to direct their grief. The division begins reconstruction immediately despite the grieving. By February 15th, the 28th is back to 80% strength through replacements. 8,427 new soldiers arrive, 60% of the division. These men aren't from Pennsylvania. They're from the general replacement pool, scattered from across America. The original hometown character of the division is diluted. Veterans resent this. The new men wear the keystone patch but didn't earn it in the Hürtgen or the Bulge. They're strangers in a division built on neighborhood bonds. But the Army needs the 28th Division combat ready. The war isn't over. Germany is collapsing but still fighting. The division must rebuild, integrate replacements, and return to combat. Grief is a luxury soldiers can't afford. The question of whether the rebuilt division is the same division haunts survivors. Private Daniel Torres, who survived Marnock, writes in his diary, "Half my company is gone. The replacements are good kids, but they're not my friends. They didn't train with us for 30 months. They weren't in the Hürtgen. They don't know what we lost in Belgium. Are we still the 28th Division, or are we just wearing the same patch?" The question has no answer. Military units maintain continuity through symbols, flags, patches, traditions. But continuity of personnel matters too. When 60% of personnel changes, is it the same unit? Philosophically ambiguous, practically irrelevant. The war continues, the division continues, the bloody bucket continues. Whether it's the same bloody bucket or a new one wearing an old name doesn't matter to the Germans. The division will fight in the coming months. Memorialization begins even as the war continues. The army authorizes memorial services for the dead, while survivors prepare for the next campaign. Chaplains conduct services in bombed-out Belgian churches. Soldiers attend in muddy combat uniforms between training exercises. The services are brief, 20 minutes maximum. Commanders don't want men dwelling on death when they'll face it again soon. But the services matter. They create space to acknowledge loss. Private James Mitchell, the medic who used whiskey to dull pain at Hürtgen, attends a service for Company K. Of 187 men he knew, 168 are casualties, 19 survivors. He sits in a pew and tries to remember all their names. He can't. Some names are gone, forgotten. The guilt overwhelms him. He promised himself he'd remember everyone. He's already forgetting. The chaplain tells him it's normal, that memory fades, that it's not betrayal. Mitchell doesn't believe him. The arithmetic of the Battle of the Bulge clarifies over time. The 28th Division sacrifice bought time measured in days. German 5th Panzer Army planned to reach the Meuse River by December 17th. They reached it December 23rd, 6 days late. 6 days doesn't sound significant, but 6 days allowed American reinforcements to deploy. 6 days allowed weather to clear, enabling air support. 6 days transformed a potential catastrophic breakthrough into a contained salient. Military historians will debate whether the Bulge was ever truly dangerous to Allied victory. American material superiority was overwhelming by December 1944, but the debate misses the point. The men of the 28th Division didn't know the strategic situation. They didn't know if their sacrifice mattered. They fought because they were ordered to fight, because their friends were fighting beside them, because Pennsylvania boys don't surrender. 8,000 casualties. 60% of the division destroyed. For 6 days of delay, for time measured in hours bought with lives measured in thousands. The exchange rate is terrible, but it worked. The Bulge was contained. Germany's last offensive failed. The 28th Division's blood helped ensure it. That knowledge provides no comfort to the families in Bedford, Altoona, Reading, Scranton, Harrisburg. Their sons are dead or missing regardless of strategic success. The gold stars in windows across Pennsylvania represent not strategic triumph, but personal catastrophe. The bloody bucket earned its name. Pennsylvania paid the price. February 3rd, 1945. Reclassification. Center, France. 8,427 men arrived for assignment to the 28th Infantry Division. Average age, 18.9 years. They completed basic training in America, crossed the Atlantic on crowded troop ships, and now stand in formation, waiting to join a division they know only by reputation. A sergeant reads statistics. The 28th suffered 58% casualties in the Battle of the Bulge. The division fought in the Hürtgen Forest and took 44% casualties. The division's nickname is the Bloody Bucket. Some replacements look terrified. Others maintain stoic expressions learned in basic training. A 19-year-old from California leans to his friend and whispers, "We're joining a division that gets slaughtered." Great. An officer overhears and barks, "You're joining a division that doesn't quit. Remember that." Only 3% of the replacements are from Pennsylvania. The hometown composition that defined the original 28th is gone. Geographic origin of the new men, 47% from other states scattered across America, 31% from Pennsylvania, 22% from unassigned general replacement pool. The Pennsylvania percentage is high compared to average divisions, but low compared to the original Keystone Division's 73%. The cultural cohesion, the shared church services, the hometown connections, the neighborhood identity can't be replicated. These men don't know each other. They're strangers assigned to fill holes left by dead friends. Veterans look at the replacements with complicated emotions. One sergeant from Scranton looks at a replacement from Texas and thinks, "This kid isn't Pennsylvania. He's not one of us." Then the sergeant catches himself. The replacement is American. That has to be enough. February 10th, replacement orientation begins. The division conducts 5 days of intensive training to integrate new soldiers. Veteran NCOs teach lessons learned in blood, Hürtgen Forest tactics, Bulge survival techniques, small unit coordination. One class is titled How to Make Peace with Dying. The instructor, a sergeant who survived both the Hürtgen and the Bulge, speaks bluntly. You're going to see men die, friends, maybe you. Here's what you need to know. He teaches practical death, how to use a dead man's ammunition, how to keep fighting when the soldier next to you is killed, how to suppress the urge to help wounded when helping gets you killed too, how to keep functioning when you want to curl up and cry. The replacements sit silent, processing information no basic training covered. Some look nauseous, others take notes. One replacement raises his hand. How do you make peace with it? The sergeant pauses, then answers honestly. You don't. You just learn to keep moving. February 18th. General Coda addresses the Reformed Division. 14,000 men stand in formation. 3,000 survivors of the Normandy to Bulge campaign and 11,000 replacements. Kota speaks without notes. Some of you earned the keystone patch in the Hürtgen Forest. Some earned it in the Bulge. Some just received it yesterday. To those who just received it, you didn't earn this patch. You're wearing it anyway. That's a burden. Men died under this symbol. Men from Pennsylvania who volunteered to fight fascism and paid with their lives. You owe them something, not gratitude. They're beyond that. You owe them performance. You owe them the effort to be worthy of what they started. Make the dead proud. The speech lasts 4 minutes. When Coda finishes, some veterans are crying openly. Replacements stand uncertain, not quite understanding the weight of expectation just placed on them. February 25th. First training exercise with rebuilt units. The division conducts a coordinated attack exercise. Infantry, armor, artillery working together. It's a disaster. Replacements don't understand veteran hand signals. Veterans move too fast for replacements to follow. Radio communication breaks down because replacements use different procedures than veterans learned. Artillery lands dangerously close to friendly positions because coordination is sloppy. The exercise is halted after 2 hours. Company commanders are furious. One captain tells his platoon leaders, "These kids are going to get people killed." A veteran sergeant responds, "They're learning. We all learned. Remember your first time under fire?" The captain remembers. He was terrified and useless. The sergeant is right. Everyone starts incompetent. Combat teaches competence to survivors. The dead don't get the chance to improve. The age gap between veterans and replacements is unprecedented. Surviving veterans average 24.7 years. Replacements average 18.9 years. That's a 6-year gap. The difference between a man who's seen industrial-scale death and a teenager fresh from high school. In companies, the dynamic becomes almost paternal. Veterans protect replacements while teaching them, frustrated by their ignorance but remembering their own early incompetence. One veteran sergeant tells a replacement, "Stay close to me. Watch what I do. Don't be brave. Be smart. Brave soldiers get medals. Smart soldiers go home." The replacement asks, "How do I know the difference?" The sergeant answers, "If you live long enough to ask that question twice, you've learned." March 5th, 1945. Division returns to frontline. The 28th deploys to the Saar sector in Germany. It's their first combat since the Bulge. Veterans are tense. They know what combat means now. Replacements are nervous, trying to hide fear behind bravado. The division crosses the German border and enters enemy territory. This is different from France or Belgium. This is Germany. Enemy homeland. The civilians here supported Hitler. The cities here manufactured weapons that killed Americans. Some soldiers feel hatred, others feel nothing, just exhaustion and determination to finish the war. At 1600 hours, lead elements make contact with German defenders. Small arms fire. A replacement freezes in the open. A veteran tackles him into cover and screams, "Move or die! Those are your options!" The replacement moves. The first battle tests whether veterans and replacements can function together. Company B attacks a fortified German position. Veterans lead the assault using Hürtgen-learned tactics. 2-man teams, sound discipline, coordinated fire. Replacements follow as best they can. The attack succeeds. German defenders withdraw. American casualties, 3 killed, 7 wounded. All three killed are replacements who made mistakes, exposed themselves unnecessarily, didn't take cover when ordered, moved at wrong times. The 7 wounded include 2 veterans and 5 replacements. After the battle, veterans gather replacements for immediate boosts. Debriefing. What went wrong? What can improve? One replacement admits, "I was scared. I forgot everything you taught us." A veteran responds, "Being scared is normal. Forgetting gets you killed. Remember next time." The replacement nods. There will be a next time. Many next times. Each one another chance to learn or die. March 8th. After 3 days of combat, the barriers begin breaking. Veterans and replacements drink together after being relieved from the line. It's the first voluntary social interaction between the groups. A replacement from Oklahoma asks a veteran from Scranton about the Hürtgen Forest. The veteran hesitates. Survivors rarely talk about it, but something about the replacement's genuine curiosity, his desire to understand rather than judge, makes the veteran answer. He talks for 20 minutes. Describes the trees, the artillery, the cold, the fear, the friends who died. The replacement listens without interrupting. When the veteran finishes, the replacement says, "Thank you for telling me. I'll try not to let you down." The veteran looks at this teenager from Oklahoma, wearing the keystone patch, and realizes, this kid isn't trying to replace the dead. He's trying to honor them. Maybe that's enough. April 2nd, 1945, Hadamar, Germany. The division liberates a psychiatric hospital used by the Nazis for slave labor and euthanasia. Soldiers find 15,000 emaciated prisoners, Soviet, Polish, French forced laborers. They find evidence of systematic murder, gas chambers disguised as showers, mass graves, medical records documenting thousands of deaths. The horror is overwhelming. Replacements who questioned what we're fighting for now understand viscerally. This is why. Not for territory or strategic advantage, but to stop this, to prevent industrial-scale murder from continuing. One replacement from Iowa, who resented being drafted, writes in his diary, "I get it now. Some things are worth fighting for. Some things are worth dying for. This is one." The shared moral purpose, witnessing Nazi atrocities, and then understanding the stakes, unifies veterans and replacements in ways training never could. The rebuilt 28th Division is not the same division that landed in Normandy. 60% different personnel, different average age, different geographic composition, different combat experience, but something essential remains. The keystone patch, the bloody bucket reputation, the determination to finish what was started. Historians will debate whether military units maintain identity through personnel changes. Philosophers will question the nature of institutional continuity. The soldiers don't care about philosophical questions. They care that the division functions, that veterans and replacements learn to trust each other, that missions get accomplished, that as many men as possible survive to go home. The Phoenix Division, destroyed and reborn, is ready for the final campaigns of the European War, ready to prove that the 28th Infantry Division's story doesn't end with the Bulge, ready to show that Pennsylvania's legacy, even diluted by replacements from across America, still means something, ready to finish the war. The bloody bucket marches east toward final victory. March 7th, 1945. Koblenz Sector, Germany. The 28th Division attacks toward the Rhine River. It's the first sustained offensive for the rebuilt division. 60% replacements mixing with 40% veterans. First light reveals German positions across agricultural fields, still frozen from winter. The attack begins at 0600 hours. Initial chaos. Replacements advance too quickly, outrunning artillery support. Veterans shout corrections. Company commanders adjust on the fly. German defenders, mostly Volkssturm units and scattered Wehrmacht remnants, fight from prepared positions. Their resistance is sporadic, uncoordinated. Some positions fight fanatically. Others surrender immediately. By noon, the division has taken its first day objectives. Casualties, 83 men, heavy by training standards, light compared to the Hürtgen or Bulge. Company commanders file reports. Replacements performed beyond expectation. Integration with veterans effective. Division combat capable. March 15th, Braubach assault. The division conducts an opposed river crossing of a Rhine tributary. Company A, 110th Regiment, attacks across the river in assault boats, while German machine guns fire from the opposite bank. This is exactly the kind of operation that destroys inexperienced units. Crossing water under fire requires coordination, speed, and courage. One boat is hit, soldiers spill into icy water. Some drown weighted down by equipment, others make it to shore, and continue attacking. The company takes its objective with 22% casualties. No panic, no mass retreat. Replacements fought alongside veterans and followed their example. After the battle, a veteran sergeant tells his company commander, "The kids did good, they're learning." 22% casualties isn't good by any objective measure, but it's sustainable. The division can absorb 22% and continue functioning. 60% casualties like the Bulge would have destroyed the rebuilt division. 22% is survivable. March 22nd. Rhine River, crossing at Boppard. The division crosses one of Europe's great rivers under fire. Engineers prepare assault boats. Artillery pounds German positions on the far shore. At 0300 hours, pre-dawn darkness, the crossing begins. Boats loaded with soldiers row across black water, German tracers arcing overhead. Some boats are hit, most make it. Within 2 hours, the division establishes a bridgehead. By dawn, engineers are constructing pontoon bridges for vehicles and armor. The operation is textbook, well-planned, well-executed, successful. General Coda observes from the near shore and permits himself cautious optimism. The division is functioning again. Not the same division that landed in Normandy. That division is gone, buried in the Hürtgen and the Bulge. But this division works. This division fights. This division wins. An incident during the crossing reveals the integration taking hold. A veteran sergeant is killed by German mortar fire. His squad, mix of veterans and replacements, continues the attack. A replacement private first class, in the army for 3 months, takes command of the squad without being ordered. He's the senior enlisted man remaining. He leads the squad to its objective, organizes defensive positions, reports to platoon command. After the battle, the company commander wants to know who the replacement is. The company first sergeant checks records. Private first class James Wilson from Tennessee, 18 years old, 91 days total service. The company commander promotes Wilson to sergeant on the spot. Battlefield promotion for leadership under fire. Wilson accepts the promotion quietly. Later, veterans in the squad tell Wilson he did the dead sergeant proud. Wilson says, "I just did what he taught me." The veterans nod. That's how it works. The dead teach the living, who carry forward what was learned. March 28th. Integration milestone. For the first time since replacements arrived, veterans and replacements socialize voluntarily off-duty. After a week of sustained combat, the division rotates to rear positions for 48 hours rest. Veterans and replacements drink together, play cards, share stories. A replacement asks a veteran about the Hürtgen Forest. The veteran, who previously refused to discuss it, answers. The conversation is halting, emotional. Other soldiers listen. The veteran describes the tree bursts, the cold, the fear, the friends who died. A replacement from California asks, "Were you scared?" The veteran laughs bitterly. "Every second of this, every day." The replacement nods. "I'm scared too." The veteran says, "Good. Scared keeps you alive. Stupid gets you killed." The barrier between veteran and replacement isn't gone, but it's eroding. Combat is the great equalizer. Everyone bleeds the same. Everyone fears the same. Everyone survives or dies based on competence, luck, and the grace of God. April 2nd, 1945. Hadamar. The division liberates the psychiatric institution used for Nazi euthanasia and slave labor. 15,234 prisoners, emaciated, diseased, traumatized, are freed. Soldiers who thought they'd seen the worst of the war in combat are shocked by what they find. Gas chambers, mass graves, medical records documenting systematic murder of disabled patients, political prisoners, forced laborers. One replacement from the Midwest, farm boy, Protestant, never seen violence worse than hunting deer, vomits repeatedly after touring the facility. A veteran from Philadelphia stands with him and says nothing, just puts a hand on his shoulder. After the replacement stops vomiting, he asks, "How do people do this?" The veteran has no answer. Nobody does. The Hadamar discovery changes the division's understanding of the war. Soldiers who questioned the purpose of their service, who resented the draft, who wanted to go home, who saw the war as political games between governments, understand now. This is what they're fighting against. Not German soldiers doing their duty, but a regime that built factories for murder, that systematized genocide, that turned medicine into mass killing. The moral clarity is absolute. Some replacements who arrived in February angry about being drafted write letters home admitting they were wrong. This war is necessary. This fight matters. The men who died in the Hürtgen and the Bulge didn't die for nothing. They died to stop this. The revelation doesn't make combat easier. Bullets still kill regardless of moral righteousness. But it provides purpose, meaning. The division's cohesion solidifies around shared recognition of what victory prevents rather than what it achieves. April 21st, Rhineland campaign concludes. The division has advanced 87 miles in 45 days, the fastest sustained advance in division history. Casualties, 1,847 total. 312 killed, 1,421 wounded, 114 missing, 13% of division strength. Significant but sustainable. The casualty rate is lower than the Hürtgen, lower than the Bulge, lower than Normandy. Objectives achieved on schedule 78% of the time, compared to 45% during the Hürtgen. The rebuilt division is performing better than the original, not because replacements are superior soldiers, but because the division learned. Tactics written in Hürtgen blood, refined in Bulge chaos, now applied systematically. The beat. Institutional knowledge survives, personnel changes. Lessons learned at terrible cost are passed to new soldiers who benefit from deaths they didn't witness. Performance metrics reveal integration success. Replacement casualty rates during the Rhineland campaign are statistically similar to veteran casualty rates. This dispels officer concerns that inexperienced soldiers would die at higher rates. Training works. Leadership works. When replacements are integrated properly, led competently, and supported by experienced NCOs, they perform adequately. Not brilliantly. Brilliant soldiers are rare in any army, but adequately. They execute orders, maintain discipline under fire, support their fellow soldiers. That's sufficient. Modern warfare doesn't require individual heroism. It requires mass competence. The rebuilt 28th demonstrates mass competence. The question persists. Are the replacements real 28th Division soldiers? Veterans debate this privately. Some maintain the division died in the Bulge, and what exists now is an imposter wearing a dead division's patch. Others argue the division transcends individual personnel. The patch, the traditions, the lessons learned constitute the division's soul. One veteran sergeant frames it philosophically. Is a river the same river if the water is different? The 28th is the channel. We're the water flowing through. The water changes, but the channel remains. Another veteran rejects the metaphor. Rivers are water. Divisions are men. Different division. The debate has no resolution. What matters operationally is that the current 28th Division functions effectively. Whether it's the same division as the one that landed in Normandy is a philosophical question for historians and philosophers. Soldiers care about practical questions. Can we accomplish the mission and survive? April 21st, evening. Crossing into Bavaria. The division pauses at the Bavarian border. Germany is collapsing. Soviet forces approach from the east. American and British forces push from the west. The Third Reich has weeks remaining, possibly days. Victory is certain now. The question becomes, how many more Americans must die securing inevitable victory? Every soldier wants to survive. Having come this far, Normandy, Hürtgen, Bulge, Rhineland, dying in the final weeks would be cosmically unfair. But war doesn't care about fairness. Germans are still fighting. Americans are still dying. The rebuilt 28th Division, veterans and replacements now functioning as integrated unit, prepares for the final campaign. The bloody bucket, destroyed and reborn, marches toward final victory. The war isn't over, not yet, but the end is visible. For the first time since Normandy, soldiers allow themselves to imagine survival, to imagine going home, to imagine life after the bloody bucket. The imagination is dangerous. Hope makes death harder, but the hope is irresistible. The war is almost over. Almost. The division marches into Bavaria, counting days, counting casualties, counting the shrinking distance between current position and final victory. April 15th, 1945. Thuringia region, Germany. The 28th Division advances into the German heartland. Resistance is chaotic, unpredictable. Some Wehrmacht units fight with fanatical determination. Veteran soldiers who believe surrender equals execution for war crimes. Other German units surrender en masse. Conscripts and old men who want to survive Germany's collapse. The division encounters a roadblock and defended by Hitler Youth. Teenagers in oversized uniforms armed with Panzerfaust rockets and desperation. American soldiers, many the same age as the German teenagers, advance cautiously. The Hitler Youth fire. Americans return fire. The engagement lasts 11 minutes. All 14 Hitler Youth are killed. No American casualties. After the battle, soldiers search the bodies. One Hitler Youth carried a photograph of his family. Another carried a school textbook. Their children, enemy children who just tried to kill Americans, but children nonetheless. Nobody celebrates the victory. The roads clog with refugees fleeing the Soviet advance from the east. Millions of German civilians move west, preferring American occupation to Soviet revenge. The division advances through columns of refugees, women, elderly men, children pushing carts loaded with possessions. The refugees see American soldiers and some cry with relief. Others show only exhaustion. The division has orders: do not impede refugee movement, but military traffic has priority. Sometimes convoys must push through refugee columns. Vehicles creep forward while desperate people press against them. One soldier describes it in his diary: "We're conquering Germany, and the Germans are begging us to conquer them faster. They're terrified of the Russians. Can't blame them. If I did to Russia what Germany did, I'd be terrified too." April 22nd. Weimar, Germany. The division enters Goethe's city, cultural capital of German Enlightenment. The city is intact, barely damaged by fighting. American soldiers occupy buildings where German philosophers and writers created some of Western civilization's greatest works. The irony is noted by educated soldiers who read Goethe in college literature classes. How did the nation that produced Goethe, Schiller, Kant, Beethoven also produce Hitler, Himmler, concentration camps, industrial genocide? One officer writes, "Walking through Weimar feels like touring a beautiful museum built over a mass grave." The metaphor is more literal than he knows. 5 miles from Weimar sits Buchenwald concentration camp, already liberated by 6th Armored Division on April 11th. The 28th will soon see it. April 28th. The division governs 47 German towns simultaneously. Military government teams, officers trained in civil, administration, take control of town governments, food distribution, displaced persons, Nazi official arrests. One captain becomes de facto mayor of a 12,000-person town overnight. He's never governed anything larger than a company of 200 soldiers. Now he's responsible for water supply, sewage systems, food distribution, preventing disease outbreak, maintaining order. The captain describes the challenge. "I'm an infantry officer. I know how to attack a fortified position. I don't know how to run a town. Nobody trained me for this." He does it anyway. American soldiers become administrators, judges, police. They arrest Nazi officials, organize displaced person camps, distribute food to starving civilians. The transition from combat to governance happens in days. The psychological whiplash is severe. May 2nd, Czechoslovakia border. The division races east toward Czech territory. This isn't about defeating German forces. Germany is days from collapse. This is about political positioning before Soviet forces arrive from the east. The Allies agreed on occupation zones during Yalta Conference. Americans must reach their designated lines before Soviets claim more territory than agreed. The division advances rapidly, bypassing German positions that would have required days to reduce. Speed matters more than completeness. At the Czech border, American units halt at prearranged demarcation lines. Soviet forces are visible across the border. American and Soviet soldiers wave to each other across 100 yards of no man's land. Allies, partners in victory. Nobody mentions that within years they'll be enemies in a different kind of war. Cold instead of hot, but war nonetheless. May 7th, 0800 hours. Germany surrenders unconditionally. The news reaches the division via radio. Victory in Europe. The war is over. Reactions are mixed. Some soldiers celebrate, shouting, crying, firing weapons into the air in violation of safety regulations. Others sit quietly, processing. One veteran of Normandy, Hürtgen and Bulge, says simply, "We won, now what?" The question encapsulates the psychological challenge facing soldiers who defined themselves by war for years. Combat gave life structure, purpose, meaning. Horror, yes. Terror, absolutely. But also clarity. You knew your job. Kill Germans, don't get killed, help your friends. Now what? Return to civilian life? How? After everything they have seen, everything they've done, can they just go back to normal? Do they even remember what normal is? The celebration is tempered by absence. Soldiers celebrate with whoever survived, but they're acutely aware of who's missing. Friends killed in Normandy, Hürtgen, Bulge, Rhineland, the victory belongs to them too, maybe especially to them. One company commander orders his men to attention and reads names of company members killed during the war. 43 names. The company stands silent for 43 seconds, one for each dead man. Then the commander says, "We won. They won. We're here to celebrate. They're not. Don't ever forget the price." The company responds, "We won't forget." They mean it in the moment. Some will keep the promise for decades. Others will try to forget. Will spend years trying to bury memories of combat. Will discover that forgetting is impossible. May 8th, VE Day. The division occupies positions straddling the Bavarian-Czech border. Official celebrations are muted. The war in the Pacific continues. Victory in Europe doesn't mean the war is over, just half finished. Some soldiers will be transferred to Pacific theater. Others will remain in Europe as occupation forces. A few, primarily the longest-serving veterans, will be sent home. Nobody knows yet who goes where. The uncertainty dampens celebration. One soldier writes home, "The war in Europe is over. I'm grateful to be alive. I'm terrified I'll be sent to Japan. I don't think I can do this again." The letter expresses what many feel, but won't say aloud. They've reached their limit. They functioned in combat through discipline, training, loyalty to friends. But internally, they're hollow, psychologically exhausted. The Pacific War terrifies them not because Japanese soldiers are more dangerous than Germans, but because these soldiers have nothing left to give. The transition from combat to occupation reveals unexpected challenges. Soldiers trained for war struggle with peacekeeping. Combat has simple rules: kill Germans, capture territory, accomplish the mission. Occupation has complicated rules: govern Germans, maintain order, rebuild infrastructure, prevent revenge killings, process war criminals, manage displaced persons, prevent disease, ensure food distribution. The complexity overwhelms soldiers conditioned to think in combat terms. One sergeant tells his platoon, "I wish they'd kept shooting. Fighting, I understand. Governing Germans while Germans' refugees starve and displaced persons want revenge, and we're supposed to maintain order and nobody has food and the water doesn't work. I don't understand any of this." Incidents of fraternization create command headaches. Official policy forbids American soldiers from fraternizing with German civilians. The policy is unenforceable and widely ignored. Soldiers develop relationships with German women. Some are romantic. Others are transactional, food and cigarettes exchanged for companionship. Officers face impossible choice: strictly enforce fraternization policy and prosecute half the division, or ignore violations and maintain morale. Most choose selective enforcement, punishing only the most egregious violations. One company commander confides to his diary, "We're ordering 18-year-olds to govern civilians, while pretending those civilians don't exist as humans. It's absurd. Of course they're fraternizing. They're young men far from home. The German girls are young women whose men are dead or captured. Nature happens. We can't stop it by regulation." The division processes 2,847 Nazi officials for war crimes investigation. Mayor of every occupied town, police chiefs, camp guards, Gestapo officers. Anyone connected to Nazi regime. The arrested men are detained, interrogated, documented. 412 are transferred to war crimes tribunals. 89 are eventually convicted. The process reveals the banality of evil. Most arrested Nazis aren't monsters. They're bureaucrats who stamped papers, policemen who followed orders, administrators who organized logistics. They claim ignorance of atrocities. They insist they were following laws. American soldiers tasked with guarding these prisoners struggle with conflicting emotions. One private assigned to guard an SS officer writes, "How do I not kill him? He's right there, unarmed. I know what he did. I could shoot him and claim he tried to escape. Who would question it?" A chaplain counsels him, "Then you become what you're fighting against. Justice through process, not revenge through murder." The private doesn't shoot, but he thinks about it every day. May ends with the division in limbo. The war in Europe is over. The war in Pacific continues. The division waits for orders. Who stays? Who goes home? Who transfers to Pacific? The uncertainty is maddening. Soldiers who survived Normandy to VE Day want to believe they're done. They've served. They can go home. But the army needs manpower. The Pacific invasion of Japan will require millions of soldiers. The 28th might be sent there. The possibility haunts veterans who've already given everything they have. The Bloody Bucket survived the Hürtgen and the Bulge, survived the Rhineland and the final campaigns, survived to victory in Europe. Now they wait to discover if survival means going home or going to the Pacific to start over. The waiting is its own kind of combat, different but equally exhausting. The war is over, except it isn't. Not for them, not yet. May 10th, 1945. Weimar, Germany. The 28th Division establishes occupation headquarters in Goethe's city. Soldiers occupy elegant buildings overlooking manicured parks. The contrast between architectural beauty and recent history creates cognitive dissonance. How could the nation that built this also build Buchenwald? The question has no satisfying answer. Division headquarters assigns occupation duties. Each regiment gets a sector, each battalion a cluster of towns, each company individual municipalities. Soldiers who spent the last year destroying Germany now must help rebuild it. The psychological transition is jarring. Yesterday's enemies are today's responsibilities. Germans who cheered Hitler now need American help to survive. The soldiers resent this, but they follow orders. They always follow orders. Buchenwald sits 5 miles from division headquarters. The concentration camp was liberated by 6th Armored Division on April 11th. Now it serves as displaced person center housing, former prisoners awaiting repatriation. The 28th Division provides guards, administrators, logistics, support. Soldiers assigned to Buchenwald detail rotate through the camp weekly. They see survivors, skeletons with skin, weighing 70 to 80 pounds, barely alive. They see evidence of atrocities, gas chambers, crematorium ovens, medical experimentation facilities, mass graves. Division medics try to provide care, but many survivors are too far gone. They die despite treatment. Disease, starvation, damage, trauma. One medic's diary. "I've seen men die in combat. This is different. Combat is quick, violent. This was systematic, industrial. They turned murder into a bureaucracy." May 15th. The confrontation policy. Division commanders implement policy from higher headquarters. German civilians will tour Buchenwald. The policy aims to shatter German denial, the claim that civilians didn't know about concentration camps. Buses arrive carrying well-dressed Germans from Weimar. Many are professionals, doctors, lawyers, teachers, businessmen. They claim ignorance of the camp 5 miles from their homes. American soldiers force them to walk through Buchenwald, to see the ovens, to see the mass graves, to see the survivors who look more dead than alive. Some Germans vomit, some faint, some weep. Others remain defiant, insisting they didn't know, couldn't have known. American soldiers watch with contempt. You didn't smell the smoke, you didn't see the trains, you didn't wonder where your Jewish neighbors went. Some Germans admit complicity through silence, others maintain denial. The soldiers stop caring whether Germans admit guilt. The evidence speaks louder than any confession. June 3rd. The fraternization problem intensifies. Despite non-fraternization orders, relationships between American soldiers and German women multiply. Command faces reality. The policy is unenforceable. 143 soldiers are court-martialed for fraternization violations in May-June. Most sentences are reduced or overturned on appeal. Commanders realize prosecution is futile and damages morale. The policy quietly shifts from prohibition to regulation. Relationships are tolerated if discreet. Officers pretend not to notice soldiers dating German women. Enlisted men pretend to follow regulations. Everyone knows the pretense is fiction. One officer explains the pragmatic calculation. We're asking teenagers to occupy a defeated enemy population, maintain order without excessive force, and somehow not see the enemy as human beings. It's impossible. They're going to fraternize. We can either punish half the division or accept reality. June 18th. War crimes processing. The division detains and processes suspected war criminals for tribunal investigation. The work is bureaucratic, tedious, morally complicated. Soldiers guard men who organized genocide, stamped deportation papers, commanded killing squads. One private is assigned to guard an SS officer awaiting trial. The private, a replacement who joined the division in February, struggles with the duty. The SS officer is polite, speaks English, engages in small talk about weather and food. The private finds himself almost liking the man. Then he remembers Buchenwald, remembers what this polite man did. The private asks his sergeant, "How do I not kill him?" The sergeant responds, "You remember that we're better than they are? We give trials. They gave gas chambers. That difference matters." The private accepts this intellectually. Emotionally, he still wants to pull the trigger. Displaced persons complicate occupation duties. The division is responsible for 47,000 DPs, Soviet, Polish, French, Belgian forced laborers, and concentration camp survivors. These people are stateless, homeless, traumatized. Many don't want to return home. Soviet DPs fear execution as traitors. Polish Jews have no families to return to. The division establishes DP camps, provides food and medical care, attempts to arrange repatriation. The work is overwhelming. One officer describes it: "We're running a city of 47,000 people who speak 20 different languages, have nothing except what we give them, and can't or won't go home. How are we supposed to manage this?" The answer is poorly. The division does its best. It's not enough. Some deeps die from disease or malnutrition despite American efforts. Others survive but remain in camps for months, sometimes years. The division's mission expands to include denazification. Soldiers screen German civilians for Nazi Party membership. Officials must prove they weren't actively involved in regime crimes to maintain employment. The process quickly becomes absurd. In some towns, 80% of professionals were party members, not from ideological commitment but from career necessity. Firing all party members would collapse local government, stop food distribution, shut down utilities. American commanders make pragmatic compromises. Low-level party members who committed no specific crimes can remain in necessary positions. This decision infuriates some soldiers who believe all Nazis should be punished. Command responds: punishment versus practicality. We're choosing practicality. Germany must function or millions starve. Psychological impact on American soldiers is severe. Division chaplains report 40% increase in counseling requests during May-June occupation period. Soldiers seek help for nightmares, anger, inability to process what they've witnessed. Common themes: moral injury from witnessing Buchenwald atrocities, guilt about treating Germans humanely after seeing what Germans did, questioning whether victory was worth the cost. One chaplain notes, "They're asking questions I can't answer. Why did God allow Buchenwald? How can we show mercy to people who showed none? Was killing Germans during the war murder or justice? I have theology. They need answers. Theology doesn't provide answers to questions this fundamental." Some soldiers cope through dark humor, alcohol, work. Others withdraw, become isolated, stop engaging emotionally with anything. July brings policy changes. Fraternization prohibitions relax officially. Soldiers can speak to German civilians in professional contexts. Romantic relationships remain officially prohibited, but unofficially tolerated. The division continues occupation duties, but soldiers begin thinking about going home. The point system determines discharge eligibility. 85 points needed. 1 point per month service, 5 points per campaign star, 5 points per decoration, 12 points per child. Veterans of Normandy to V-Day campaigns have enough points. Replacements who joined in February don't. The division will lose its most experienced soldiers and retain its least experienced. This seems backwards, too. Everyone except the bureaucrats who designed the system. The veterans leave. The replacements stay. The bloody bucket continues, its composition changing again, its identity diluted further. August 15th, first departure orders. Soldiers with 85+ points receive orders for home. The emotion is complicated. Relief at survival, guilt at leaving comrades, fear about what comes next. One veteran who survived Normandy, Hürtgen, and Bulge writes, "I'm going home. I should be happy. I just feel numb. What do I do now? Who am I without the army? How do I explain to people who weren't there what this was like? I don't think I can go back to normal. I don't think there is a normal anymore." He goes anyway. They all go. Some adapt, some struggle, some never recover. But they go home, carrying invisible wounds alongside visible scars, carrying memories that will haunt them for decades, carrying knowledge that they can never share with people who weren't there. The occupation continues into autumn. The division governs German territory, processes DPs, maintains order, waits for final disposition. Some soldiers will eventually go home. Others will transfer to the Pacific Theater, though Japan's surrender in August eliminates that possibility. The war is truly over now. Both theaters, complete victory. The soldiers feel no triumph, just exhaustion, relief, gratitude for survival, and haunting awareness that the version of themselves that went to war in 1944 is gone, killed by what they witnessed and what they did. They're different men now, changed fundamentally. They don't know if the change is permanent or if civilian life will restore who they were. They don't know if they want to be restored or if that version of themselves should stay dead. They know only that the war is over, and somehow they survived, and now they must figure out what survival means. The bloody bucket, the Keystone Division, Pennsylvania's sons, they survived. Now they must learn to live. July 1945. The points announcement, the Army reveals its demobilization formula, 85 points required for discharge. Soldiers calculate frantically, 1 point per month of service, 5 points for each campaign participation credit, 5 points for each decoration, 12 points for each child. Veterans who landed in Normandy and fought through VE Day mostly qualify. Replacements who joined in February mostly don't. The division fractures psychologically, those going home and those staying. One replacement tells a veteran, "You get to leave, I have to stay." The veteran responds, "I gave 2 years of combat for these points. You gave 3 months. Don't resent me for earning what you didn't." The exchange is bitter, unfair to both. The replacement didn't choose to arrive late. The veteran didn't choose to endure longer, but resentment festers regardless. August 15th, first contingent departs Germany. The longest-serving veterans board, trains for ports and ships home. Emotional farewells happen in muddy assembly areas. Men who fought together for years separate, knowing they will probably never see each other again. Some exchange addresses, promise to write, vow to stay in touch. Most promises won't be kept. Civilian life will pull them in different directions. One veteran tells his squad, "If you're ever in Scranton, look me up. Kowalski's Tavern on Cedar Avenue. I'll buy the first round." He means it. Whether anyone will actually visit is uncertain. The bonds formed in combat are powerful, but often don't survive the transition to civilian life. The shared experience that united them becomes the barrier that separates them. Nobody else understands what they endured. October 1945, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. The first large homecoming parade. 12,000 spectators line the streets. Governor Martin presides. State officials deliver speeches. The 28th Division Color Guard marches carrying battle-worn flags. Behind them, veterans in dress uniforms, rows of men wearing the keystone patch, the bloody bucket, the symbol that costs so much. Families scan the ranks desperately. Mothers searching for sons, wives for husbands, children for fathers. Some find who they're looking for and weep with relief. Others search in vain, realizing again that their loved one isn't coming home, will never come home. One mother collapses when she finally accepts her son is truly gone. Not missing, not delayed, just dead. Medics treat her. The parade continues. Victory and grief intertwined inseparably. The pattern repeats across Pennsylvania. 47 separate parades between November 1945 and March 1946. Every town that contributed soldiers to the 28th holds its own homecoming. Scranton, Altoona, Reading, Bedford, small parades in small towns, large parades in cities. Estimated total attendance, 250,000 spectators. Pennsylvania welcomes its sons home, but the celebrations feel incomplete. Too many didn't return. The parades honor the living, but can't ignore the dead. Every parade includes moments of silence for the fallen. Every speech mentions sacrifice. Every celebration is tempered by absence. The war is won, but the cost is permanent. Veterans return to changed circumstances. Pre-war jobs are gone. Factories converted from war production back to civilian goods, hiring different workers. Housing shortages affect every city. Returning veterans compete with other Americans for limited homes. The GI Bill offers education benefits, but many veterans are too old for college, too traumatized for academic study. They need jobs immediately, families to support, lives to rebuild. One veteran describes the challenge. I survived Normandy, Hürtgen, Bulge. Now I can't find a job in my hometown. The war prepared me to kill Germans. Nobody needs that skill in Pennsylvania. The frustration is widespread. Some veterans adapt quickly. Others struggle for years. Psychological problems emerge that families don't understand. Veterans wake screaming from nightmares. They flinch at loud noises. They can't enjoy celebrations or crowds. They drink too much. They withdraw from family and friends. Wives complain that husbands came back different, cold, distant, angry. Children fear fathers who seem like strangers. The Veterans Administration hospitals are overwhelmed. By 1947, 847 division veterans are seeking psychiatric care, 6% of those who served. The number represents only those who acknowledge he is needing help. Many more suffer silently, self-medicating with alcohol, isolating themselves, trying unsuccessfully to forget what they can't forget. November 1945. A veteran returns to his church. He attended this church his entire life before the war. Same pews, same hymns, same pastor, but everything feels different. The pastor preaches about gratitude for victory, about God's providence, about returning to normalcy. The veteran sits listening and feels nothing. The sermon is meaningless. God's providence. Where was providence in the Hürtgen Forest when men died screaming? Gratitude? He's grateful to be alive but can't celebrate when so many friends are dead. Normalcy? There is no normal anymore. He leaves mid-sermon, walks out, doesn't return. Years later, his wife asks why he stopped attending church. He can't explain. How do you tell someone that war killed your faith along with your friends? The VFW posts become sanctuary for many veterans. Veterans of foreign wars chapters across Pennsylvania fill with 28th Division men seeking community with people who understand. The VFW halls serve as informal therapy. Veterans drinking together, playing cards, not talking about the war because they don't need to talk about it. Everyone there knows. The shared silence is comforting in ways civilian interaction isn't. One veteran explains, "At the VFW, I don't have to pretend. Civilians ask stupid questions. Did you kill anyone? What was it like? I can't answer those questions. At the VFW, nobody asks. We just sit together. That's enough." March 1946. Final division elements return from Germany. The occupation duty ends. The last soldiers come home. The 28th Infantry Division is officially deactivated, transitioned to peacetime status as Pennsylvania National Guard Division. The wartime division ceases to exist. General Kota retires. Staff officers separate. The division that fought from Normandy to VE Day is dissolved, existing now only in memory, records, and the men who served. A private ceremony at division headquarters marks the deactivation. No speeches, no fanfare, just soldiers lowering the division colors, folding them carefully, placing them in storage. The bloody bucket is retired, for now. The statistics of the division's service are compiled. Total, individuals who served in the 28th Division, August 1944 to May 1945, approximately 20,000. Authorized strength never exceeded 14,000, but replacements brought total personnel higher. Total casualties, approximately 18,000 across all individuals. 3,784 killed in action, 12,192 wounded in action, 2,024 missing. The numbers are staggering, nearly 90% casualty rate when accounting for all individuals who served. The division was destroyed and rebuilt multiple times. The Bloody Bucket earned its name in blood. Survivors struggle with the arithmetic of survival. Why did they live when friends died? Random chance, divine providence, skill, luck? The question has no answer but haunts anyway. One survivor writes in his diary, "I don't know why I'm alive. Better men than me died in the Hürtgen. Braver men died in the Bulge. I survived through accidents of timing, positioning, dumb luck. I don't feel grateful. I feel guilty. Like I stole something from the dead. The chance to go home, to have families, to grow old. They should be here instead of me." The guilt is irrational but powerful. Survivor's guilt becomes the invisible wound that many carry longer than physical scars. The question of memory becomes urgent. Will the 28th Division sacrifice be remembered? Will future generations understand what happened in the Hürtgen Forest, in the frozen villages of Belgium, in the long march across Germany? The veterans worry their service will be forgotten, overshadowed by D-Day divisions that get more attention, reduced to footnotes in history books that focus on Patton and Eisenhower. One veteran says, "We bled for this victory. We died for it. Someone needs to remember. If nobody remembers, what was it for?" The question drives some veterans to write memoirs, give interviews, speak at schools. Others refuse to talk about it, believing that those who weren't there can never understand. Both responses come from the same fear, that the dead will be forgotten, that their sacrifice will mean nothing, that the Bloody Bucket will fade from memory like morning mist. The long road home isn't measured in miles, but in adjustment. Some veterans transition smoothly to civilian life. They find jobs, marry, have children, build successful lives. The war becomes something they survived, not something that defines them. Others never fully transition. They remain psychologically in combat, hypervigilant, emotionally numb, unable to connect with civilian concerns. The war defines them completely. Most fall somewhere between, functioning adequately in civilian life, but carrying invisible burdens, managing but not thriving, surviving but not really living. The 28th Infantry Division came home, but parts of every veteran stayed in Europe, buried in military cemeteries, dissolved in the Hürtgen Forest, lost in the snow-covered hills of Belgium. The men who returned are incomplete. They left pieces of themselves scattered across battlefields. They'll spend the rest of their lives learning to live as incomplete men, carrying absence where wholeness used to be. The Bloody Bucket came home, changed, damaged, but home. 1954, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. The 1st 28th Infantry Division reunion. 847 veterans attend. Average age, 38 years. A decade has passed since the war. Most have rebuilt civilian lives, jobs, families, mortgages. They gather at a hotel ballroom for 3 days of shared memory. Speeches focus on sacrifice, comradeship, duty. General Coda, retired and aging, delivers the keynote. "We were citizen soldiers who did what we had to do. We didn't seek glory. We sought survival and victory. We achieved both at terrible cost." The applause is subdued, notable in their absence. Many Hürtgen and Bulge survivors. They can't attend. The trauma is too fresh even 10 years later. The memories are too painful. One veteran explains his absence in a letter. "I want to remember the men, not the dying. Reunions make me remember the dying." 1969, Luxembourg. The nation dedicates a monument to the 28th Division. The ceremony takes place in Wiltz, site of desperate fighting during the Bulge. Surviving officers attend. Luxembourg civilians fill the town square. Many remember Americans who fought there in December 1944. A Luxembourg official speaks. "The 28th Division saved us. You fought when others would have run. You died for our freedom. We will never forget." The emotional reconciliation between liberators and liberated is powerful. Veterans weep openly. Luxembourg civilians embrace American soldiers they haven't seen in 25 years. An 80-year-old Luxembourg woman finds a veteran and tells him through a translator, "You gave me food when you had none. You were wounded, but you helped my children. Thank you." The veteran doesn't remember her specifically. Too many civilians, too much chaos. But he accepts her gratitude gracefully. 1994. Normandy, France. 50th anniversary of D-Day. The world celebrates the invasion with massive ceremonies, presidential speeches, international media coverage. 28th Division veterans attend but feel marginalized. They didn't land on D-Day, they arrived D+46. The dramatic invasion the world remembers happened without them. One veteran expresses bitterness. Everyone celebrates D-Day. Nobody remembers the Hürtgen Forest. Nobody remembers the Bulge. We're the forgotten division. Another veteran responds, "We don't need recognition. We know what we did. That's enough." But the first veteran disagrees. It's not enough. The dead deserve recognition. Their families deserve recognition. Being forgotten dishonors their sacrifice. 2000s. 4. Iraq. The modern 28th Infantry Division, Pennsylvania National Guard, deploys to Iraq. The division was reconstituted after World War II, fought in later conflicts, and now faces insurgency in Mesopotamia. Modern soldiers are aware of their unit's World War II legacy. They feel pressure to live up to the bloody bucket reputation. One young soldier writes home, "We're following in the footsteps of men who fought Hitler." How do we measure up to that? Veterans of World War II meet the deploying soldiers. The meetings are emotional. 18-year-old soldiers about to deploy meet 80-year-old veterans who deployed 60 years earlier. One World War II veteran tells a young soldier, "Don't compare. Your war is different. Different enemy, different terrain, different mission. Just do your duty. That's all we did." The legacy becomes burden and inspiration simultaneously. Modern 28th Division soldiers carry the weight of history. The keystone patch on their shoulders represents Hürtgen, Bulge, Rhineland, battles where thousands died. Living up to that legacy feels impossible. But the World War II veterans offer perspective. They weren't supermen. They were regular people, coal miners, steel workers, farmers, who did extraordinary things because circumstances demanded it. One veteran tells modern soldiers, "You honor us by serving, not by matching our achievements, but by maintaining the tradition. You're the 28th Division." That means something. Carry it forward. 2019. The last World War II 28th Division veteran dies. Harold Miller, age 98, served in the 110th Regiment through the Hürtgen and Bulge. His death marks the end of living memory. No World War II 28th veterans remain. The division holds a memorial service. Modern soldiers stand honor guard. The question is posed, now that they're all gone, who tells the story? The answer is imperfect. Historians tell the story through documents and statistics. Family members tell the story through letters and photographs. Veterans told the story through memoirs and oral histories recorded before they died. But the lived experience, the fear, the cold, the terror, the brotherhood, dies with the last veteran. Future generations will know what happened, but never feel what it meant. The statistics define the division's World War II service. Total casualties August 1944 to May 1945, approximately 18,000 individuals. Killed in action, 3,784. Wounded, 12,192. Missing, 2,024. Days in combat, 196. Territory covered, 847 miles across France, Belgium, Luxembourg, Germany, Czechoslovakia. Medal of Honor recipients, 2, both posthumous for Hürtgen Forest actions. Presidential Unit Citation for Bulge performance. 7 campaign, streamers, French Croix de Guerre. The statistics tell part of the story, the what and when. They can't convey the how or why. The strategic impact is debated by historians. Did the Hürtgen Forest fighting accomplish anything? The division suffered 44% casualties for minimal territorial gain. Was it pointless slaughter or necessary attrition? Did the Bulge stand matter? The division was destroyed, but delayed the German offensive 4 to 5 days. Was the delay worth 8,000 casualties? Historians argue both sides. Some claim the 28th sacrifice was essential to victory. Others argue the division was wasted in poorly planned operations. The veterans mostly don't engage with these debates. They know what they did. Whether historians judge it worthwhile doesn't change the reality that friends died, and survival required endurance beyond normal human capacity. European memorials keep the memory alive. 14 monuments across France, Belgium, and Waru. Luxembourg specifically honor the 28th Division. Annual remembrance ceremonies continue. Luxembourg civilians maintain American graves. Belgian schools teach students about the Bulge, including the 28th's role. French villages remember the liberation. The European memory of the division is stronger than American memory in some ways. Europeans whose countries were liberated remember the cost of that liberation. Americans who weren't there struggle to grasp the magnitude of sacrifice. The modern 28th Division continues the tradition. Pennsylvania National Guard Division, carrying the Keystone patch, maintaining World War II customs and traditions. The division deployed to Afghanistan 2008 to 2009, deployed to Iraq 2004 to 2005. Modern conflicts are different. Counterinsurgency versus conventional war, political constraints versus total war, volunteer military versus citizen soldiers. But the tradition continues. The bloody bucket deploys, fights, comes home, rebuilds. The cycle repeats across generations. The ultimate question remains: what does the 28th Division's World War II service mean? To the soldiers who fought, it means surviving hell, losing friends, doing what circumstances demanded. To their families, it means absence, grief, pride mixed with pain. To Pennsylvania, it means the state contributed disproportionately to victory, paid a terrible price, and carries that sacrifice as part of its identity. To America, it means citizen soldiers from one state exemplified the democratic ideal, ordinary people rising to meet extraordinary challenges. To the world, it means fascism was defeated partly through the sacrifice of Pennsylvania coal miners and steel workers who became soldiers, fought, bled, died, and won. The Bloody Bucket's story doesn't have a neat ending. The division didn't ride into sunset victorious and complete. It was destroyed, rebuilt, destroyed, again, rebuilt again. It lost nearly 90% of all individuals who served when accounting for total casualties across all replacements. It accomplished missions at terrible cost. It failed operations that should have succeeded. It succeeded in operations where failure seemed certain. It was simultaneously one of the war's most tragic divisions, suffering extraordinary casualties in operations of questionable strategic value, and one of the war's most heroic divisions, fighting desperate battles that delayed enemy advances at critical moments. The legacy is complicated, messy, human. Not a story of unambiguous triumph, but of survival through horror. Not a tale of military perfection, but of ordinary people doing extraordinary things imperfectly. Not a narrative of glory, but of endurance.